Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second and final part of What If Naruto was Fem-Madara's grandson. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
You want to fight me? Right now? Ginsuke asked in surprise, unaware that Sasuke was right behind Team 7. He turned on his Sharingan when he arrived to see what moves he could mimic. Yes. Lee nodded, then leapt to his feet and assumed a combat stance. Ginsuke said. Raising an eyebrow, Naruto stood up and said, "Aniki, let me take care of him." "Very well, Naruto-kun. I have to fight you for the beautiful Sakura-chan anyways," said Lee after glancing at Naruto. "Let's do it, fuzzy eyebrows," Naruto said, lowering himself into the Uchiha intercepting style. His blue eyes were blazing red with four tomo. Lee exclaimed, "What an honor to face the legendary Sharingan," before charging at Naruto and striking him with a series of quick blows. However, Naruto was able to easily dodge and counter each blow by using his Sharingan. The Sharingan truly is formidable," said Lee with a groan before landing flawlessly. Then Lee charged full speed at Naruto. Astonished, Naruto said, "No way, I can hardly use my Sharingan to follow him." Konoha Whirlwind. Lee then swung his leg in a low sweeping kick, sending Naruto flying into the wall, shocking him. Ginsuke exclaimed in shock, "No way, Naruto-kun." Sakura exclaimed as she rushed to join him. Naruto had passed out. Sakura gave Lee a look. "He's quite powerful, Naruto-kun." "Serves the dobe right," said Sasuke with a sly smile. Lee assumed the Goken stance and exclaimed, "I am the best junior ninja in Konohagakure. It is pointless to fight against me. I will destroy you." "Okay, then I accept your challenge. Let's do this," Ginsuke grinned. "Ginsuke-kun. There's no time. We have to submit our applications in less than half an hour," Hikari said, glancing at the clock. "With a hurry," Ginsuke said to Lee, "this will take 5 minutes." Squealing, Hikari exclaimed, "Ginsuke-kun. Pardon me, Gai-sensei, I might have to use that move. I might need to break the big rule," Lee observed. Lee disappeared in a flash. Konoha Hurricane was his next attack. Ginsuke did not go near it. The kick, however, was a feint. Ginsuke steered clear of it. He was hit by Lee's leg. Astonished, Ginsuke said, "There's no time to duck again. Blocking is necessary." Lee's leg came quickly after he raised one hand in a half seal. "What?" Ginsuke exclaimed in shock. Lee's kick made contact. Ginsuke dropped to the floor. Then Hikari exclaimed, "Ginsuke-kun. How did he get through my guard?" Ginsuke asked, struggling to stand up. "I thought Ginsuke-kun blocked that," Hikari exclaimed in shock. Getting to his feet, Ginsuke said, "All right, now I think I'll show some of my true skill." However, Lee stepped in front of him and gave him a kick to the head. Ginsuke was in the air, flying. Then Lee squatted and disappeared. Ginsuke was startled to see Lee following him from behind. "Heh, thanks a lot, Ginsuke. You've given me some new moves to learn," smirked Sasuke as he committed the taijutsu moves to memory with his Sharingan. "Leaf Shadow Dance," Ginsuke deduced, meaning no. Who made him a sensei of the Jonin? What happened?" Naruto asked, grabbing his head as he woke up. "Aniki. Now Ginsuke, if you are a born prodigy, then I am a prodigy of hard work. Let me show you that hard work beats natural talent," Lee said, removing his bandages. However, Lee's bandages were pinned to the wall when a pinwheel struck. "That's enough, Lee," a voice said, and Sakura, Naruto, and Hikari turned to see a big red turtle with a Konoha headband on. After noticing, Ginsuke flipped and fell to the ground. Lee landed too, bowing shamefully to the turtle. "Ginsuke-kun." Hikari hurried over to him in concern and knelt down next to him. "Are you okay?" Ginsuke was shaking from the shock of Lee's skill. Hikari was extremely worried, saying, "Oh, Ginsuke-kun. Aniki got beaten?" Naruto asked, glancing at him. "I'm knocked out by fuzzy brows and miss all the fun." "According to Lee, why you saw." "Lee, you know the rules. That move is forbidden," the turtle said, chewing Lee out. Please forgive me, I was only," Lee said, bowing even more. Astonished, Naruto asked, "What's up with the turtle? They're chewing him out." "Fuzzy brows, sensei," Naruto said, slapping his left fist in his right palm in the aha manner. "I wonder if the turtle is." When Hikari and Ginsuke see a turtle gnawing on a human, they get a little uneasy. Lee makes an effort to object. Hey, Hikari, Aniki." Naruto approaches, and they both turn to face him. "What?" asked Hikari. Isn't that a turtle? Naruto asked, gesturing. Obliviously, Hikari said, staring at Naruto as if he were a fool. So can turtles be senseis? Inquired Naruto. Don't ask stupid questions, yelled Hikari in frustration. You fool! The turtle screamed, and Lee winced at the tone. You think I care about your feeble excuses? Consider the repercussions of a shinobi showing off his secrets. Why yes sir. Lee exclaimed in embarrassment. Are you prepared for the repercussions of your actions? The turtle asked. Lee said with a bow. Why yes sir. Then come out Guy-sensei. The turtle exclaimed, and a puff of smoke appeared. Standing on top of the turtle was a man who resembles an older Lee. The individual said, Hey kids! You're showing that your flames of youth burn brightly. Hikari, Sakura, Ginsuke, and Naruto all go crazy when they see him. His eyebrows are huge, says Hikari, shivering. Naruto continued, they're almost alive, and the dog do, I've never seen anything like it. How dare you make fun of Guy-sensei, shouted Lee as he turned. Shut up, I don't know what to make of all the freaks showing up here, screamed Naruto in response. Lee grew angrier, saying, What, Lee? Said Guy. Yes sir, Lee said, turning to face him. You idiot! Guy punched him in the face, and he knelt down, sobbing, and said, You. Guy-sensei, Lee said, looking up with tears as well. Then they gave each other a hug, and the background experienced an odd phenomenon. It turned into an ocean sunset. A.N. The horror, it burns. Team 7 was going crazy. Sasuke even switched off his Sharingan and hurried to catch up with his teammates. What is this? Naruto said, attempting to dispel it with his Sharingan genjutsu. He hasn't changed at all, Ginsuke said with a shiver. My Kami. This is Sunset Genjutsu, the dreaded one. Hikari and Sakura had their eyes shielded. The terrible event was soon over. Lee, it's okay, you're still young. It's okay to make mistakes, said Guy to Lee. Guy-sensei. You are too kind, Lee said, glancing at Guy. Guy clarified, however Lee, I cannot allow your actions to go unpunished. 500 laps around the village after the Chunin exams. Sir. Lee saluted. So those genin must be Kushina's and Ginsuke's, Guy said, turning to look at Team 7. He then saw Ginsuke and exclaimed, What? Given that Ginsuke is already a jonin, how did he get into the exams? Tell me, how is Kushina-sama? Guy inquired astonished. Naruto asked, You know Ka-chan? Do I know her? Guy asked, laughing as Team 7 watched. Guy abruptly disappeared. When the team turned around, Guy was directly behind them. The lovely green beast stated to them, I should say so, I, and Kakashi are rivals. Guy clarified, Kushina-sama and I are tied at 50 wins against Kakashi. Our fighting score is 50 wins for her and losses for me. Kushina-sama is stronger than me. Ginsuke laughed and shook his head, saying, Hey, he outpaces Kushina in speed. Please forgive my youthful pupil Lee, said Guy. After unpinning Lee's bandages and throwing a kunai, Guy said, You should take Lee and head to the classroom. Lee started wrapping his hands again. Naruto saw the scuffs on his hands. After wishing them luck, Jia disappeared. Lee continued, Ginsuke, about earlier I lied when I said I was the best junior ninja. That title belongs to a member of my own team. I will take him down. He warned Ginsuke. That's why I entered these exams. You are a target now too. Be ready for our next match, Lee said as he leapt away. According to Hikari, Ginsuke-kun, Aniki, what was that crap? He made you look like a total rookie, Naruto said, placing his hands behind his head. Naruto-kun? Sakura asked in surprise. Ginsuke's fists clenched. I guess you're not as strong as you thought, eh? Was Naruto's choice of taunt. Hello, Hikari exclaimed. Naruto. Quiet Naruto, next time he's toast, Ginsuke snarled. Despite getting beaten this time around, right? Snorted Naruto. Once more, Hikari shouted, Stop talking, Naruto. You saw his hands, right? Said Naruto. Ginsuke was taken aback. Naruto went on, You're done for Aniki. I'm sure Fuzzy Brows receives some sort of special training every day. Ginsuke-kun, Hikari said, looking at Ginsuke worriedly. After calming down, Ginsuke grinned and looked up, saying, Interesting, it's getting exciting with these Chunin exams. Naruto smiled and said, Yes, yep, said Hikari, smiling. Shanaru. Sakura punched the air. We are the greatest. Ginsuke led the charge, saying, Naruto. Hello, Hikari, Sakura, come on. In response, the trio said, Yes, Kushina was waiting for them in the classroom when they arrived, so they quickly left. She grinned and said, I'm glad you came. Sakura-chan, in this manner, everyone is eligible to take the tests. After explaining their qualifications, Kushina approached Naruto and gave him a hug, saying, Please Naru-chan, be careful in there. Looking up at his mother, Naruto said, Ka-chan, don't worry, I'll try my hardest. After kneeling and kissing him on the forehead, Kushina said, I'll be rooting for you, Naru-chan. She then got up and moved aside, giving them entry. When the four of them walked into the classroom, they were startled to see that there were other ninjas present. Stuttering, Naruto said, What is? Finally, Sakura said, What is this? Other ninjas were present as well. So many people, are they all here to apply? Sakura wondered. At that moment, a girl exclaimed, Sasuke-kun. When Ginsuke turned around, he saw Sasuke irritated by Ino's leap on him. Uchiha's young eye was twitching. TCH, Sakura said. Rolling her eyes, Ino Buddha is a pitiful person. Sakura caught Ino's irritated glance. Well, if it's not forehead girl. Do you still have feelings for the dobi? Ino drew her eyelid down and protruded her tongue. With a snarl and a fist, Sakura said, Don't call my Naruto-kun that Ino Buddha. Ino simply did what she had done before, Naruto-kun. Kohaku glomped Naruto. Sakura turned to see Naruto being hugged by the Uchiha girl. The Haruno heiress threw up a fist, saying, Shanaru. Kohaku. Take my Naruto-kun away. No. Kohaku said, sticking her tongue out at Sakura. I own him. Sakura snarled, I don't own Naruto-kun. Soon after, a big-boned boy and a lazy genius appeared. So you guys are taking this troublesome exam, eh? Said Nara Shikamaru, the lazy genius. Well, if it's not the Three Stooges, Naruto smiled. Throwing, Shikamaru said, Don't call us that. Choji was too engrossed in his chips to respond. Yahoo! A voice shouted, The rookies are back together. Shino, Kiba, and Hinata approached at Naruto. Hinata flushed and said, Hi. It appears that the entire gang is present, Kiba said. Shikamaru scowled more deeply and said, Unfortunately, I'm including you. I suppose all of this year's rookie teams applied for the exams, Kiba said with a smug smile. Ginsuke, I wonder how far we'll go. Ginsuke grinned and said, TCH Kiba, you're trying to be cool, right? Please, with the way we've trained, you have no chance against us, Kiba said haughtily. Oh, stop talking, Kiba, shouted Naruto Aniki, you won't even be able to beat me. I'm sorry Naruto-kun. Kiba didn't mean it, Hinata said in apology. Please pardon Kiba for his conceit, Ginsuke-sama, Akamaru yelled at Ginsuke. An older voice then said, Will you all please stop talking? When the teams turned around, they saw an older boy dressed in purple, with silver hair pulled back in a ponytail and glasses. You guys are the new Genin teams, aren't you? He added, youngsters right out of school? You know, this isn't a school excursion. Who the hell do you think you are? Ino scowled. My name is Kabuto Yakushi Kabuto, the boy grinned. You must open your eyes, he said, gesturing behind them. Why? Sakura inquired. They turned to find a group of genin from the secret rain village of a megacure staring at them with intense glares. According to Kabuto, those genin are from a megacure and are known to have short tempers. Naruto and Sakura were visibly afraid. That's what they call ki. Ginsuke sneered. Ginsuke then unleashed a tiny sample of his ki at them, which was sufficient to overwhelm the pitiful ki of those aim genin and frighten them. Killing intent, I'll show them how it's really done. How can he have this power? I deserve it. Sasuke shuddered at the ki. In utter panic, the Omegacure genin immediately averted their gaze and stopped glaring. Such murderous intent. Even Orochimaru-sama would fear this man, Kabuto thought, feeling his heart exploding. However, it is inevitable. I recall the experience. Kabuto? Inquired Sakura. Have you previously taken the test? Yes, this is actually my 7th try, Kabuto said with a smile and a nod. Sakura exclaimed in amazement, Wow! That implies that you are aware of what to anticipate from this test. With a sheepish smile, Kabuto said, Yeah, I guess so. Kabuto, you are amazing, shouted Naruto. Cute, said Kabuto, laughing and revealing some cards. All right. The least I can do is provide you newcomers with some essential details about what to expect from these shinobi skill cards. Astonished, Sakura said, Shinobi skill cards? To put it simply, they contain information about our skills. Kabuto clarified it took me 4 years to gather all the intelligence required for this test, which is represented by symbols. When I run my chakra through them there are roughly 200 cards total. The card that Kabuto drew was blank. It appears blank, doesn't it? He said with a smile. The only method to read the information on the cards? Kabuto used his finger to move the card around. Why is he doing it? Shoji inquired. It's by using my own chakra, Kabuto said. Inserting his hand into the rat seal. Each set of cards is associated with its owner. Immediately after, the card displayed a map of the elemental nations. Kabuto clarified, this card shows how many applicants each shinobi nation sent to the exam. Do you have dossier cards? Ginsuke inquired. Cards for every single applicant? Kabuto laughed and asked, why? Do you have a romantic interest in someone? Ginsuke replied, yes, Sabaku no Gara from Sanagakure and Rock Lee from Konohagakure. I want to see Ginsuke's statistics, screamed Kiba. Ginsuke gave him a fierce look. Sasuke said, I want to see the Dobi's statutes. Raising his fist, Naruto exclaimed, Sasuke. You know their names? Said Kabuto. No effort. Kabuto sends chakra through after drawing 2 cards. This confused Naruto, who said, I don't know what this guy's talking about but I'll play along. According to Ginsuke, let me see them. First up is Rock Lee. Kabuto demonstrated to him your teammates are a year younger than him. He has finished 11C rank and 20D rank missions. Made a guy as his Jonin instructor. He has no other skills. But his taijutsu is very strong. Hyuga Neji and Tenten are teammates. This is his first time taking the exam, just like you guys. Now for Sabaku no Gara. She has completed 8C rank and wow, Kabuto said after switching the card to display Gara 1B rank. Few genin receive B ranks. The truly startling thing is that she has survived every mission. I see. Well, Shukaku is known for that impenetrable defense of hers, Ginsuke said, narrowing his eyes at the red-haired Suna Juanchuriki. When Ginsuke cut the card in half with his sword, Kabuto changed it to display Ginsuke's stats. The card then floated to the ground, and the Daiokai Jonin said icily, I'd prefer not to have my secrets known. The white-haired young man appeared to suddenly materialize, a very sharp-looking sword in one hand, shocking the other genin. Tenten was a weapons enthusiast, and her eyes glistened when she saw the exquisite blade. The strength of the key Ginsuke's release was sufficient to knock down every genin. Shukaku, trembling inside Gara, muttered, he'll kill us all. Indeed, Gara was trembling with fear. If Mother was scared, it would be foolish of her not to be too. Then Ginsuke put his blade away. The massive key shook Kabuto, but he bounced back after facing Orochimaru's. This year, every village, Konoha, Suna, Aim, Kusa, Taki, and Ado, sent the best rookie ninja to this exam. He clarified regarding Otogakure, the hidden sound village. I know very little since the village is new. There isn't much intelligence on it. However, there are extremely strong shinobi competing in every other village. Is anyone else feeling outclassed besides me? Hinata inquired. Sakura said, so what you're trying to say is everyone else here? Yes, they're like Lee, Gara, and Ginsuke there, Kabuto said with a nod. Hand selected top rookies they must be. It's a cruel test. Kushina was recalling what Iruka had said to her outside the door. I know Ginsuke will be fine, but Naru-chan, Sakura-chan, and Hikari-chan must be trembling in their boots, Kushina said, turning back to face the door. Sakura saw Naruto trembling and said, I've never seen Naruto-kun scared, but I can't blame him. Ginsuke is actually our second sensei, but we're all genin here. I'll talk to him, the Haruno heiress said, clenching her fists. It's still not like him. Sakura said, Naruto-kun, don't worry, there's nothing to fear. Suddenly, Naruto yelled and pointed. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I'll crush you all, too. You have it. Kushina remained silent outside the door but laughed to herself at her son's arrogance. What the hell's his problem? Shouted Ino. Naruto-kun. Sakura irritatedly exclaimed. Although she does adore Naruto, she sometimes feels that he overconfidences himself. Naruto smiled and said, yes, that was fantastic, now I feel better. Oh boy. Ginsuke simply shook his head. The group glared at the boy with the long hair and the others. Gara looked at Naruto calmly. Hey, it's that runt we met earlier, Kankuro thought. Huh, Neji grinned. He has a lot of energy. You were too forgiving of him, Lee. In the back, a spiky-haired genin with a note on his headband read, according to his dossier, our town's an unknown village in a backwater country. I know it's embarrassing, isn't it? His teammate said. Do you want to enjoy yourself with them? When it was revealed that the ninja had bandaged every part of his face and head save for one eye, "That sounds good. We're being treated like an afterthought by that twit for his dossier. Let's provide him with some information he has an unsound understanding of the hidden sound village. We'll check for intelligence deficiencies." Naruto was quite pleased with himself, says Kiba. "What was that? You're quite brave." "How troublesome," Shikamaru said. "Because of that one sentence, everyone in this room is an enemy. Many thanks, you moron." "What are you doing, Naruto-kun, you baka?" Sakura said, choking Naruto. Naruto objected, saying, "I'm being honest." The group appeared to become more irate. "Pay no attention to my teammate, he's a special ed ninja," Sakura said, swallowing. They're planning something," Ginsuke said abruptly, narrowing his eyes at the back. Suddenly, the unfamiliar ninja from earlier moved in, weaving in and out of the group as they made their way to Kabuto. When Kabuto looks up, he sees an Otogakure genin in the air and can feel them approaching. Pulling out some kunai, he hurled them at Kabuto. Fortunately, Kabuto leapt back, but then the mummy-like ninja with the odd gadget on his arm materialized in front of him. With a clang as his sword struck the device, Ginsuke moved and disappeared, his sword drawn. The Auto Genin recognized him and became terrified at once. With his sword in front of him, Ginsuke's eyes turned crimson red and his pupils contracted into slits as he met the Auto Genin's frightful stare. They all shook and fell to the ground in fear. "You deal with us all when you attack one Konoha ninja," Ginsuke informed them after his ki smothered theirs and conjured up gruesome and terrifying images in their minds. He stopped using his ki output, put his sword away, and returned to his team. However, a voice said, "All right, you little bastards, listen up," as a puff of smoke appeared. When the smoke cleared, a tall, ominous-looking man with multiple scars and several other ninja were visible. "I'm Morino Ibiki, your proctor for the first exam and, for the time being, your worst adversary," he grinned at them. "You sound ninja," Ibiki said, gesturing to the Auto Genin. "Would you prefer to be eliminated before the test even begins?" Ibiki explains the guidelines to them before presenting a piece of paper with a number on it. The test is written. After everyone has taken their seats, Ginsuke is seated in the middle, followed by Sakura in the rear, Hikari in the front, and Naruto in the fourth. Hinata is seated next to Naruto, and the Hyuga heiress is attempting to stay conscious despite being so near him. After explaining the test's rules, Ibiki tells them that they have an hour to complete the 9 questions and that the 10th question won't be asked until 45 minutes into the exam. Naruto uses his 6,000-year knowledge to answer his test with ease, finishing ahead of schedule. Ginsuke looked at Naruto and said, "Poor Naruto. He was never good with paper tests." Sakura uses her intellect to answer the questions as well, but poor Naruto is so terrified that he is at a loss for what to do. The others are now preparing their attacks after figuring it out. Kiba uses Akamaru, who gives him the answers in a low voice. As they fly around, Shino's beetles collect the answers for him. Tenten transmits the answers to Lee via wires and mirrors. Sakura was taken over by Ino, who used her mind jutsu to commit the answers to memory. While Hinata and Neji used their Byakugan to find their answers, Sasuke and Kohaku activated their Sharingan, and the Auto Genin used some sort of sound ability. Daisen no Mi is the name Gaara gives to the sand eyeball she makes. After realizing that he must cheat without being caught, Naruto looks around before opening his third eye, the special Jubi eye, to find the answers from the person in front of him and writing them down. We're almost at the end of the 45 minutes. A few teams were caught and disqualified by the proctors. The extra proctor turned out to be Konkuro's puppet, Karasu, when he had to use the restroom. It was time for the 10th question after 13 teams had been eliminated. The Genin was shocked when Ibiki revealed one more rule. In the interim at Jinsei Iroh, the Jonin Kakashi, Kurenai, Kushina, and Asuma have assembled. "Well, with our subordinates in the exams," sighed Kakashi, "we have a great deal of free time." Asuma tells him, "Don't be alarmed, before you know it, we'll be busy again, Kakashi." Asuma drew on his lit cigarette. With a startled expression, Kakashi asked, "Why?" Asuma responded, "Word is the first proctor this year is Morino Ibiki." Astonished, Kushina exclaimed, "That sadist, did they allow him to apply to be a proctor?" Kurenai turned to face the woman with the red hair and said, "Sadist?" "That's right, Kurenai, you're a rookie Jonin," laughs Asuma. Looking solemn, Kurenai asked, "What's he like?" The explanation from Asuma was, "He's a pro's pro." Kurenai turned to face him and asked, "A pro at what?" Kushina said, Interrogation and torture. Kushina-sama is right, Asuma said after taking a drag. Ibiki will employ psychological torture, which frequently results in even greater harm, rather than physical torture during the tests. Back in the classroom, Ibiki asked the genin if they wanted to accept or reject the 10th question, which would result in a lifetime ban from the Chunin exams if they accepted it and answered incorrectly. The others, including Naruto, are in disbelief. Everyone is starting to feel anxious. Will they handle it or not? Naruto-kun, why won't you raise your hand? I know your dream is to be Hokage, but I don't want it to be taken from you forever. Sakura attempts to raise her hand as she watches Naruto struggle, but she stops when Naruto's arm begins to slowly rise. The sight of his hand rising startled everyone who knew him, and poor Hinata felt as though the world had fallen apart. However, Naruto slammed his hand down on the desk and exclaimed, "Arrrrgh, do not understand me. I'm not going to quit or run. I'll take your dumb inquiry. Even if I spend the rest of my life as a genin. Even if it's only through sheer stubbornness, I'll still become Hokage." Ginsuke shakes his head and says, "Hey, Naruto, I really respect your guts." "Naruto-kun, you may be a baka, but you're my baka." Sakura blushed. "Is that your final decision?" Ibiki asked. "You can still stop right now." "I never break my word, that's my ninja way," grinned Naruto. 78 of them are still here." The kid dispelled their fears along with his own, Ibiki said, looking around. He looked at the other proctors, who grinned and nodded. "There's no point in dragging this out, nobody else will quit because of him." "Nice call," Ibiki said. "All of you who are still here have passed the initial test." "Hun," was the response from everyone. Ibiki then tells them that the purpose of the first test was to see how well they could spy, and of course, Naruto tries to brag, which makes Kohaku and Hinata laugh. Ginsuke merely gives a headshake. Ibiki, who had been severely tortured, showed everyone his bald and scarred head. The only person who had witnessed worse on his own friends was Ginsuke, who was about 6,500 years old. Then Ibiki felt something approaching from this direction. Ginsuke exclaimed, "Damn it, not her," as she detected the aroma of snakes and dango. A black ball exploded into the room, and when Kanai emerged from it, it was revealed to be a banner. "Oh brother," Ibiki sighed, "she's early again." She appeared, a lovely woman with lavender hair in a ponytail like Aruka's, misty brown eyes, a skirt, a brown trench coat, and a fishnet. The boys noticed her attire, and several of them had nosebleeds. Second Proctor Mitarashi Anko was written on the banner. "None of you Gakis are in any position to celebrate." The woman screamed, "I am Mitarashi Anko, the proctor for the second half of the Chunin exams, follow me now." However, nobody did. Instead, they sat there in utter shock. Ginsuke was attempting to blend in after slightly removing the banner. Ibiki said, "Anko, you're early again." Anko turned red. "She reminds me of Naruto-kun," Sakura murmured. Observing the number remaining, Anko said, "Are there still 78 of them? You defeated 26 teams, Ibiki." "Ginsuke-kun's here, I'll make you mine soon," Anko exclaimed as she saw Ginsuke, turning to face Ibiki. "You went too easy on them." Shaking his head, Ibiki said, "No, this year's applicants are exceptional." Anko laughs, "That's correct. Before the next test is completed, I'll cut the number in half." Shivering, Sakura said, "Cut us in half." With a sly smile, Anko said, "The mere thought of it excites me. When we relocate to our next location tomorrow, I'll go over the specifics first thing in the morning. Meet me in front of the training grounds number 44 gate." The following day, the largest forest they had ever seen lay behind the enormous fence where the genin met. With a sly grin, Anko turned to face them and said, "Training ground number 44, also called the Forest of Death, is where we will be taking the second exam." "It's a spooky place," Sakura said. Anko grinned ominously and said, "You're going to discover for yourself why it's known as the Forest of Death." Choosing to act foolishly, Naruto makes fun of Anko by saying, "You're going to discover for yourself why they call it the Forest of Death." "Whoa! Naruto either has a death wish or the biggest set I ever saw to mock Anko," Ginsuke exclaimed. "You're merely attempting to frighten us," Naruto said, pointing accusingly at her. "I will not be fooled by your tricks." Anko grinned and said, "Really?" From her sleeve, she pulls out a kunai and flicks it at Naruto, saying, "You're a pretty arrogant kid, Gaki." After snipping a lock of her hair, the Kusagakure ninja kunai lashes out at Naruto, only to run into another kunai. "Naruto, if you want to maintain your manhood, don't insult Anko again," Ginsuke said with a sigh and a raised hand to indicate that he had thrown the second kunai. The last man to do that vanished from the world. The woman with another kunai emerged behind Naruto, and he went pale. "Listen to Ginsuke-kun, Gakiguys, like you were always the first to go," Enko said, cutting Naruto's face slightly with the kunai in her hand, causing him to bleed. "Spilling that declis red blood I love so much," Enko purred in his ear as she licked the blood. "Scary," shivered Naruto. Ginsuke moaned. "Oh boy." He reasoned that Kushina would burn her alive if she discovered that Naruto had been cut. "Naruto-kun." Worried Sakura Kohaku's Sharingan was spinning, and she was glaring at Enko. Hinata exclaimed, "En Naruto-kun," in great concern. A tongue wrapped around Ginsuke's wrist, shocking him as he turned and swiftly withdrew a kunai after feeling a tremendous amount of ki. Right behind him was the same Kusa Genin from before, her tongue wrapped around his wrist, the kunai Ginsuke that she had used to block Enko's earlier. In a spooky voice, she said, "Your kunai, I think you dropped it." "Thank you, but don't stand behind me radiating bloodlust," Ginsuke said, turning the kunai in his hand, "or else I might get thirsty." His eyes turned red, his pupils suddenly contracted into slits, and his canines suddenly sharpened. Enko was excited to watch this. Naruto felt even more uneasy. The genin of Kusagakure laughed. "I apologize, I just get so excited at the sight of blood and I was already revved up from when your kunai cut my hair." "She smells of snakes," Ginsuke said, squinting his eyes as he retracted his kunai. In order to avoid being held accountable for their deaths in the event that they were killed, Enko first had them sign consent forms. Enko then went on to explain the second exam's rules, which included a giant race to a tower in the middle of the forest with 2 scrolls, an Earth scroll and a Heaven scroll, that you couldn't open until you reached the tower. Teams that lost a member or failed to reach the tower would be eliminated from the competition. Enko gave them one final directive: make an effort to live. Gate 16 Kiba exclaimed with delight, "Yahoo, we are the experts in survival skills." He turned to Hinata and said, "Hinata, don't be so lenient with us now." Hinata remained quiet, and Shino, well, remained quiet as usual. Gate 27. "So troublesome, looks like Naruto's our target," Shikamaru moaned. Ino felt down. Choji's head was a black, gloomy cloud. Gate 12 pumped up. Naruto says, "Yeah. If someone approaches us, I'll kill them." Something about her didn't feel quite right, and Ginsuke starts to perspire. Oh brother. He recalls that Kusa Genin from earlier. This portion of the test makes Sakura and Hikari uneasy. Gate 20. "Now is the time to carry out our orders in the open," the Auto Genin leader thought. Gate 6, 5 days with Gaara, as if looking out for enemy teams wasn't bad enough, said Kankuro, shivering as he turned to face his younger sister. Gaara was wearing her typical icy expression. Gate 40. "I don't think that woman is just a Genin," said Sasuke, who had seen it all. Kohaku had a dreamy expression on her face as she eyed Naruto. "Danzo-sama wishes to use Naruto's power for the good of Konohagakure. I will carry out my mission," Sai said, glancing at Naruto. Gate 15. The Kusa Genin were talking about what they were going to do. "Target the rookies first. It looks like our targets are the same team." On her face, the Kunoichi had a spooky expression. After receiving their scrolls and turning in their forms, each team proceeded to its designated gate. It was time, so Enko checked her watch. The Chunin exam's second section starts right now. The gates opened instantly, and all of the teams rushed in. Because of Naruto's bloodlines, his Biju abilities, and Ginsuke's abilities, the Kusa Genin are pursuing them. Soon after, Team 8 had already caught an older Konohagakure team using a cunning trap. Enko was thrilled by the cries. Hearing the screams, Naruto and his group turned. "Did you hear someone scream?" Sakura asked, trembling. "It's really spooky here." "Sakura-chan, it's no big deal," Naruto said with a smile. Then, blurting, "Excuse me, I gotta Naruto dashed behind some bushes. "I told him not to drink so much milk before a mission," Ginsuke said, shaking his head. After a few minutes, Naruto returned and said, "Ah, much better. With his orange jumpsuit and short, spiky hair, he looks just like he does in canon." However, Ginsuke squinted and struck Naruto in the face, causing him to crash into a tree. Surprised, Hikari said, "Ginsuke-kun? That was too far, Ginsuke," Sakura exclaimed in shock. Rubbing his face, Naruto asked, "What did you do for Ginsuke?" According to Ginsuke, "Where is Naruto? I am aware that you are not him." "I'm right in front of you, bleeding Ginsuke," shouted Naruto. "You're wearing your weapons pouch on your left side," Ginsuke said. Drawing a kunai. Naruto has the right hand before the exams began. Naruto's face was also cut by Anko-chan. A few more things. Naruto always calls me Aniki because we're like brothers, the demon Jonin said, lowering himself into a fighting stance. I also know Naruto's scent by heart. He has long blonde hair with red strands and doesn't wear a jumpsuit. A ninja emerged from the rain as Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. It's good that you know your teammates so well, he said. Wearing a yellow outfit and a mask over his mouth, he hurried over to Sakura and Hikari and said, "Which of you has the scroll?" Fire release. Phoenix Sage fire technique. Ginsuke acted without using the hand seals. Ginsuke leapt into the air and hurled a flurry of fireballs out of his mouth. The AIM ninja tried to tree hop away, but Ginsuke followed him as he and Ginsuke collided with kunai after dodging the fireballs at high speed. Until Ginsuke noticed Naruto bound when she looked down. Then Naruto shouted, "Aniki!" Naruto used a kunai that Ginsuke threw down to break free. This gave the AIM ninja an opportunity to say, "Good luck." A gap. He tossed a few small knives and a kunai. Before a paper bomb dropped attached to the kunai and began to glow, Ginsuke dropped and used the branch as a shield. The Inu Jonin was startled and exclaimed, "A paper bomb!" before it exploded and sent Ginsuke to the ground. "Ow!" he said as he fell to his knees. With a kunai at his throat, the AIM ninja materialized behind him and declared, "Give up the scroll or perish." Then Hikari exclaimed, "Ginsuke-kun!" She drew a kunai in a flash. Ginsuke grinned as Hikari hurled the kunai, and the AIM ninja sprang up in time to avoid it. Naruto shouted, "You're not going to escape." Ginsuke threw the kunai with his leg and used his chakra to catch it with his foot. Naruto was in awe as Ginsuke used his chakra to launch himself into the air, shocking the AIM ninja. Ginsuke stabbed the enemy in the forearm with another kunai, his eyes blood red with green slits. Glancing up, Hikari said, "Ginsuke-kun." Ginsuke shouted, "I had no other option. His teammates' whereabouts are unknown. You will die if you just stand there." Then he used the kunai to cut the enemy's arm. "My arm. This is terrible. I thought coming alone would work, but it has been my ruin," moaned the enemy ninja. Ginsuke watched him leap off alongside the AIM crew. While the other two waited for their comrade, a terrifying force materialized. When they turned, they saw a small nine-tailed fox and decided to kill it and turn it into a fox coat. Before it was encircled by a burst of red chakra, the little fox yipped. When the adorable little fox transformed into a monstrous creature that was taller than the trees, both AIM ninja went pale. The enormous fox's whip-like tails were twice as long as its body, and it displayed sword-sized fangs. With a loud roar, the fox stood up on its back legs and lifted one arm covered in orange fur. Their bodies were crushed as it slammed its pawed hand down on them, causing blood and organs to spasm out. The AIM ninja returned to find his teammates' crushed bodies and a small fox sitting in front of him, waving its nine tails cutely. "What happened to my team?" he shouted. The AIM ninja pursued the fox farther into the forest after it yapped and fled, instructing him to follow it. A stunning young woman with red eyes and long crimson hair was leaning against a tree when he searched for the fox. The AIM ninja fell under her illusion, and she sauntered toward the dazed ninja and then killed him. Several tails struck him in the chest, burning his insides. The AIM ninja exploded. The red-haired woman picked up his scroll, stored it in her kimono, and disappeared in a swirl of red. The young woman was wearing a crimson and white fur-seed kimono that flaunted her wealth. The remains of a ninja team would be visible to anyone who came here, but neither the person nor the fox who did it would be there. Returning to Team 7, Ginsuke gave Naruto and the others advice on how to avoid being duped in the future. Hikari and Sakura memorized the password that the Inu Daiokai created, but poor Naruto was perplexed. "Hey," suggested Naruto, "let's create a shorter password, perhaps something like swordfish, Aniki." Ginsuke accepted the scroll of heaven, saying, "I'll take the scroll." Naruto was suddenly struck by something. "Ah." And the young demon king turned, saying, "What the?" Abruptly, Naruto was blown away by a tremendous gust of wind. In order to shield his face from the debris, Ginsuke said, "What a new enemy." Sakura made a shield and dropped her sword. Hikari created a windbreak. It was the same Kusa Genin as before. The woman said, "Remain here for the fun, I'm going alone." While hiding, Ginsuke noticed Hikari and Sakura coming and drew a kunai, saying, "Avoid getting too close. What is the password?" Both girls recited it with ease. "Good." Ginsuke nodded. Arriving, Naruto said, "Hey everyone." Ginsuke said hastily, "Not so quickly. What's the password? Even though Naruto surprisingly recited it, it wasn't Naruto. Naruto ducked as Ginsuke threw the kunai at him. Ginsuke-kun, Naruto got it right, exclaimed Hikari. And this time he's strong enough to deflect my attack, Ginsuke informed her. Well done, said Naruto, grinning eerily and licking his lips with a long tongue. Another puff of smoke appeared, revealing the Kusa, Kunoichi. What revealed me? According to Ginsuke, I could tell you were underground eavesdropping on our conversation. That's why I came up with that password. When her was eliminated, the Kusa Genin said, I see a trappe. I didn't realize how much fun this would be. Alongside Naruto, Naruto moaned as the wind attack buffed him. OWWWOWWW. He flipped over on his stomach in a hurry. Where have Aniki, Hikari, Sakura-chan, and Hikari gone? Abruptly, a shadow loomed over Naruto. The largest snake Naruto had ever seen made him pale as he looked up. The enormous serpent gave Naruto a hungry look before attacking him. After avoiding the lunge, Naruto saw the snake's tail emerge behind him. They caught Naruto by the tail. The snake grasped Naruto in its tail and opened its mouth to eat him, but then a huge set of jaws clamped down on the snake's head, piercing it with enormous fangs that killed it. The limp tail then dropped Naruto to the ground. Using its pawed hands to hold the snake down, a huge orange fox with 9 tails bit down on the snake's head and started to eat it, eventually raising its head to show that the snake's tail was all that was left outside its mouth before swallowing and sending the snake down to its stomach. The snake had vanished. Seeing the terrible scene made Naruto sick, so he thanked the fox and hurried away before he puked. As the enormous fox watched him go, it abruptly transformed into a ball of red chakra and took off. Be careful, Naruto-kun, the fox said. Alongside Team 7 before Team 7, the Kusa, Kunoichi, was present. Another fake. Sakura thought, if that was Naruto-kun, he would ask for the password once more. Ginsuke squinted at the adversary. This individual frightened both Sakura and Hikari. You would love to steal our Earth Scroll, wouldn't you? The enemy said, displaying an Earth Scroll since you already possess a Scroll of Heaven. She then did something that even made Ginsuke uneasy. She swallowed the Scroll of Earth. We're going to fight to the death now. A massive amount of ki was released by the enemy. Images of their own horrific deaths were shown to Sakura and Hikari. She's casting an illusion. I can handle it, but they can't, Ginsuke said, grabbing Sakura and Hikari and scurrying away from some kunai the Kusa ninja threw at them. Ginsuke didn't even feel the ki because it was far weaker than his own ki. Amazing. He wasn't even fazed by it. This boy is no ordinary prey, exclaimed the Kusa ninja in surprise. Hikari and Sakura were snapped out of the tree by Ginsuke. Ginsuke-kun, said Hikari. This enemy is too much for you, Ginsuke said with a nod. Both girls nodded, but they were blind to the enormous serpent that was pursuing them. I'll take care of her. Get to somewhere safe. Then Hikari shouted, Ginsuke-kun, snake. When Ginsuke looked up, he saw a huge snake, and the three ducked as it attempted to slam its head against them. Hikari and Sakura leapt to the floor. The snake's mouth was wide open as it approached Ginsuke. Ginsuke pulled out a number of shuriken and hurled them, saying, come back. The snake's head was punctured by the shuriken. When the snake's skin split open to reveal the snake-like ninja, all three of them gasped. Good thing you're not your typical victim. Show me your real strength. The ninja abruptly advanced on Ginsuke like a snake, but the shuriken blocked their path. A recognizable voice said, I apologize, Aniki, I forgot the dumb password. A little fox with 9 tails was perched on Naruto's shoulder as he stood there. Naruto's Sharingan came to life. The fox on Naruto's shoulder leapt down and snarled at the Kusa ninja as his Sharingan whirled around, taking in the forest's details. Sakura exclaimed, Kun Naruto. Hikari was pleased to see him as well. With his arms folded, Ginsuke said, you're late, Naruto. I apologize, Aniki. I had to contend with an enormous snake. My compliments on defeating the giant serpent, Naruto-kun, said the Kusa ninja. With his Sharingan, Naruto glared down and said, so it was him who sent that giant snake after me. Ginsuke said, I'll take care of this guy, Naruto. You can't stand him. No, Aniki, we fight him together. Naruto shook his head. Astonished, Ginsuke said, Naruto, all right. Then he pulled out his sword. This will be fun. The snake-like ninja laughed. I'll just kill you and take your heaven scroll. He bit his thumb and wiped the blood off the summon mark that appeared when he rolled up his sleeve. Rushing forward, Naruto declared, I'll go first. Soon after, he leapt at the enemy, spinning his Sharingan wildly. The Kusa ninja said, "Technique of summoning." He was perched atop yet another enormous snake. When Naruto struck his back against a hard branch above and spat out some blood, the snake's tail slammed down, deactivating his Sharingan. Then he started to tumble in the direction of the snake. "Let's not take any chances, eat him," grinned the Kusa ninja. Before punching the snake in the head, which caused it to shake violently, Naruto's eyes suddenly opened to reveal red slitted eyes and darkened his whisker lines. "Eat the fuck." Naruto, who was in his initial demon form, kept beating the snake while his third eye was wide open. "How could this boy possibly?" the enemy exclaimed in shock. "No way. Is this Naruto-kun's power as a Biju king?" Sakura exclaimed in shock after Naruto told her about the demon half of his heritage. "Amazing, Naruto really has the potential to surpass his ancestor," exclaimed Ginsuke. However, Naruto was struck by a flame from the Kusa ninja, which caused him to fall into another tree. "Look at his eyes, the Kusa ninja realized. The Kusa ninja then hurled his snake in Ginsuke's direction, saying, "Now let's see how good Ginsuke-kun is." However, Naruto uses a chakra claw to stop the snake from attacking him. In the interim, 3 genin bodies have been found by a group of Chunin, but their faces have vanished. They called Anko to come and view the bodies, and when she recognizes the person who performed the jutsu and recalls unwanted memories, she checks the ids and determines which face the man stole. They are now forced to send Anbu into the forest while Anko pursues the imposters herself, and the man she is pursuing is none other than Orochimaru, the snake Sennin, and her former sensei. Back in the woods, as Naruto was blocking the snake, he was lifted up by a familiar tongue. Struggling, Naruto says, "Now let me go, before I tear out your tongue." The Yondaime Hokage is a human descendant of the Jubi itself, so it's no wonder he was able to defeat the Kyuubi. Naruto-kun even possesses the Sharingan, proving that he is genuinely his parents' son. Minato's brat is still alive, huh? After that, Orochimaru goes through hand seals. His purple glowy fingertips slammed into Naruto's stomach, saying, "5 elements seal." Naruto let out a scream as Naruto's demon powers were sealed off by the 5-pronged spell. His demon features returned to normal. Naruto-kun is a prize worth getting. As the future Jubi, he has a huge amount of chakra that spell won't hold for long. I think I'll give him a little gift from me. The snake Sennin drew Naruto closer before biting his neck. A 3-tomo mark appeared on Naruto's neck, causing him to scream once more. The blonde then passed out. Yelled Ginsuke. Naruto. With horror, Sakura observed, "Naruto-kun. I look forward to seeing how powerful you'll become," said the snake Sennin disguised as a boy, throwing him aside. Sakura exclaimed, "Kun Naruto." When she threw a kunai, Naruto was caught and pinned to a tree. Just as Orochimaru turns to confront Ginsuke, a huge clawed hand slams down at him, shredding the tree they were on, and he instantly jumps back. Her fur was spiked with rage, her crimson eyes were full of hate for the human serpent, and her 9 enormous tails were destroying the trees when the Kyuubi herself appeared with a crash, her shadow enveloping the others. "Orochimaru!" she roared. He evaded her swipe, so she missed her attempt to crush him. With wide eyes, Ginsuke exclaimed, "Orochimaru! Orochimaru? One of the legendary Sennin?" Sakura exclaimed in shock. "Well, if it's not the Kyuubi herself," laughed Orochimaru, since they already knew there was no reason to keep his disguise. He removed it. "I see Naruto-kun freed you." Benihime gives the snake ninja a scornful glare and asks, "What did you do to him?" Then, with the tips of her 9 tails shining like swords, she lowered herself into a battle stance. According to Orochimaru, who grinned, "I gave Naruto-kun a gift, my curse seal of heaven." Ginsuke exclaimed in shock, "No, Naruto received a curse seal from you." Exasperated, Benihime threw her tails at the snake ninja. Yes, Orochimaru laughs. His power will increase as a result. Orochimaru steered clear of Benihime's tails. "We'll meet again," Orochimaru grinned, but Ginsuke jumped at him out of the blue, his eyes burning red. "Die, Orochimaru," the Daiokai said, lifting his right arm and extending his claws. Shinku Sume. He cut the tree in front of him with his claws, but he missed and left a red trail behind. After avoiding it, Orochimaru also bit Ginsuke in the neck. "Arg!" Ginsuke moaned. Kuso. The Earth Curse Seal, a distinct mark that looked like 3 curved lines, appeared on his neck. Angrily, Benihime roared, "Orochimaru!" Benihime cursed. Before assuming her human form, she got up on her back legs and attempted to crush Orochimaru with one enormous paw, but he swiftly escaped through the ground as a result. The powerful Nine Tails only managed to make a huge crater in the ground with her blow. In the interim, Anko had run into her old sensei and attempted to fight him, but he was able to see right through her tactics because he was an S-rank missing nin. Alongside Team Guy, "All right, dawn will be in the next hour or so," Neji said as he described his strategy. "We managed to obtain food and water on our first day. Now is the time to take action because the majority of the other teams will be taking a break. For the next 30 minutes, let's divide up and reconnoiter." But when the allotted time is up, Neji threw a kunai to the ground and said, "Make sure you return here, you understand?" Tenten and Lee nod, but Lee salutes as well. "All right. Hey, Roger." Neji grinned. "Well done." They all take off. Group 7 Benihime, Sakura, and Hikari all succeeded in bringing the boys to safety. Ginsuke and Naruto seem to be on fire while Sakura is caring for Naruto. Benihime and Hikari are keeping an eye on Ginsuke. To help manage their fevers, both of them are wearing towels over their heads. The girls are aware that they have to protect them. The following morning, Hikari and Sakura awoke, and Benihime planned to survey the area. Both Sakura and Hikari assured her that they would watch over their teammates. In a whirl of red, Benihime disappeared. The Auto Nin team was observing them. Hikari had been watching Ginsuke all night, so she fell asleep, but Sakura hadn't slept well, and she had nightmares about the encounter with Orochimaru. To stay awake, Sakura shook her head and rubbed the sleep from her eyes. When Sakura heard rustling in the bushes, she drew a kunai right away, but it turned out to be a squirrel. "A squirrel?" Sakura asked, and the rodent sprang forward. When Sakura saw it was going toward her secret trap, she threw a kunai, and it landed in front of the squirrel, causing it to scramble away in shock. Hidden. The bushes were where the Auto Nin were hiding. "She's pretty wound up," Zaku said. "Did she notice the paper bomb we affixed to the squirrel, I wonder?" According to Dosu, "No, that's not it." "So what, Dosu? What's happening?" "What are we waiting for?" Dosu said, staring at Sakura with a murderous expression. "We'll have to get closer." In the interim, when Lee stopped tree hopping in the forest to observe falling leaves, the mini guy had the dumb notion to collect all the leaves before they fell, and he succeeded in doing so except for one. However, he had to stop when he noticed a squirrel with a paper bomb on its back that was about to detonate, and Lee saved the squirrel. Returning to Team 7, the Auto Nin team was attacking Sakura, who was running low on chakra. Naruto and Ginsuke started to release subtle puffs of purple chakra. Rock Lee shows up with a squirrel on his shoulder just before the Auto Nin could kill her. When Lee demonstrated his taijutsu prowess, the bottle's momentum shifted. However, the young taijutsu prodigy was crippled by the Auto Nin using their strange and terrifying powers. After relying on Kawarimi, the art of substitution, and a number of shuriken, Sakura is now alone once more and has hardly enough chakra to use her Kekkei Genkai. As a result of her poor sleep, she has almost no stamina left. However, Team 10, which consists of the next generation of Ino Shikacho, steps in and tries to defend Sakura, but they are also defeated. Purple chakra is emanating from Ginsuke's and Naruto's necks. The defeated Konoha Genin was informed by Dosu that Naruto and Ginsuke were their targets. A voice said abruptly, "You're vile." Tenten was standing on a tree branch with Neji. "You Auto Nin think you're strong just because you thrashed these weaklings. These Konoha insects keep coming," Zaku said, irritated. Tenten and Neji saw their teammate who had died. "Lee," Tenten said, glancing down at him, "you seem to have made a mistake, huh?" Neji activated his Byakugan and said, "That bowl-cut kid is on our team. You hurt him. You have to answer to us now." The veins bulging beneath his eyes were a visible source of distress for everyone. His eyes seemed to penetrate everything, Dosu thought. "Stop while you can, or we'll give it full force." "Huh, this chakra, I'm sensing," Neji said as he suddenly felt a dark chakra pass by. "Why don't you do something about it if you think we're so vile?" Dosu said. "Well, from the looks of it we won't have to," Neji said, turning his head. Everyone experienced a sudden, dark chakra burst. With Ginsuke at his side, Naruto gradually rose up the purple chakra that surrounded his body, his right half covered in markings that resembled flames, and his left half covered in a rip pattern that gave him an unsettling appearance. Ginsuke's eyes were crimson red with green pupils, and Naruto's Sharingan was active, all four tomos spinning and his third eye fully open, frightening those unfamiliar with his heritage. Shikamaru had a sick feeling in the pit of his stomach. This chakra was strong, but it also felt wrong, corrupt, evil, pure evil. Ino shuddered at her fellow blonde's condition. When Naruto saw Sakura's condition, he frowned and said, "Sakura-chan, who did that to you?" Sakura looked at Naruto in disbelief and said, "Naruto-kun." Ginsuke frowned at Sakura's condition as well, saying, "Tell us who threw you into that state." "The energies of the curse are working their way around their bodies," Dosu exclaimed in shock. Arrogantly, Zaku declared, "It was us, deeper into the woods." This chakra. Naruto-kun. Ginsuke-kun. Benihime pulled her tails from the corpse of an AIM genin she had killed, and then a dark, sinister chakra passed through her senses. Knowing she had to act quickly, she swiftly killed the other two AIM genin and took their scroll. A heaven's scroll. She disappeared in a whirlpool of red Group 7. Sakura said, "Naruto-kun. Your body." After glancing down at his injured hand, Naruto raised his head again and said, "It's nothing. Sakura-chan, I feel fantastic, it's just the power coursing through me. I can now at last show the villagers how demon-like I can be." Sakura's and Team 10's spines tingled when he smiled, but it wasn't his typical smile, rather, it was an evil one. Ginsuke clarified, "Orochimaru gave it to Naruto and me, we have this power because of him." Everyone, including Neji, shuddered in fear as he grinned. So the mark she mentioned was a curse seal, Dosu thought. Naruto gave the Auto Nin a fierce look and said, "So you injured Sakura-chan." Similar to Ginsuke, Naruto's Sharingan spun and the marks shifted to his opposite side. They emitted a fiery purple aura from their bodies. Dosu trembled, saying, "Their chakra is too strong." "Dosu!" snorted Zaku. "Avoid being so afraid of these half-dead people." With his hands raised, he charged his chakra. "No, Zaku!" shouted Dosu. "Don't." Very depressing airwaves. Zaku launched a huge sound wave into the air. Some of the tree branches were blown away, and everyone shielded their faces from the flying debris. When the gust subsided, Naruto and Ginsuke were nowhere to be seen in the enormous trench. "Hey, I blew those weaklings to bits," Zaku asserted. "What weaklings are you referring to?" From behind him came the voice. Naruto and Ginsuke stood there with Sakura and Hikari at their feet, and Zaku turned slowly before being sent flying by a vicious backhand from Naruto. They can save their teammates because they're strong and quick. Dosu understood that they couldn't compete with either of them. Zaku struggled to stand up after skidding across from the ground on the backhand. "Aniki," Naruto said, "I'll take care of the windbag." Ginsuke grinned and said, "All right, I'll take Mummy Boy." Using hand seals, Naruto demonstrated the fire release, Phoenix Sage fire technique. He bombarded the Auto Nin with fireballs. Zaku got to his feet and pointed his hand cannons, saying, "You're becoming too arrogant. I can blow these out," he said. Releasing another wave of sound, however, he saw shuriken as the flames went out. "What?" Shuriken in the fire. The shuriken pierced Zaku, and Naruto emerged below him. As a warning, Dosu said, "Zaku act." Squelch, but Ginsuke's claws, now slick with the blood of the Auto Nin, buried themselves in Dosu's back, barely missing his vitals, and struck him through the back with his hand. Dosu felt blood rise. With a sickening grin, Ginsuke said, "Silence and watch." Nothing was visible to Zaku until Naruto placed his foot against his back while holding both of Zaku's arms behind him. With a savage grin that would have scared Anko, Naruto said, "Hey, you take such pride in your arms, time to say goodbye to them." As he pulled, Naruto's smile grew sicker. Then, as the blood flowed, Naruto tore Zaku's arms off, causing him to pass out from the pain and blood loss. Dosu had a bloody cough. Sakura and the others were horrified as they watched. With a sickening squelch, Ginsuke grabbed his claws and threw Dosu at the tree, saying, "Well, it looks like you're the only one left since your teammates are down." With a sickening thud, Dosu struck the tree and slid to the ground, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. Naruto turned to face Dosu again and said, "Aniki, can I finish him?" "We finish him together, Naruto," Ginsuke retorted. Dosu fought to stay awake because he thought he would die if he went to sleep. The two moved in Dosu's direction, their thunderous footsteps echoing to the terrified Auto Nin. Sakura was trembling and thought, This isn't Naruto-kun." She recalled the time spent with Team 7, but Naruto had changed because of a single mark, becoming ruthless, evil, and heartless, and the Haruno heiress could take no more. When Sakura finally ran in Naruto's direction, the pink-haired Kunoichi embraced him from behind and yelled, "Stop!" She was crying and said, "Naruto-kun, don't do it. Please. I beg you, Naruto-kun, please get back to me." Naruto used his Sharingan to look back at her, but he was startled out of it by her tears. Ginsuke was embraced by Benihime, who said, "Ginsuke-kun. You're not like this. Stop. Please." Avoid turning into a monster like my sister used to be. She was also crying because the vixen couldn't bear the idea of her beloved turning into a malevolent monster and because she was frightened by the eerie pattern on his body, which had her 9 tails wrapped around his waist. His third eye faded and closed into a slit, and Naruto's curse mark retracted, returning his eyes to normal. Ginsuke's eyes also returned to normal, and his marks vanished, just like Naruto's. The effects of the curse seal caused Naruto and Ginsuke to fall back. Sakura and Benihime apprehended them, gazing up at Sakura. Naruto said, "Sakura-chan? What's causing your tears?" Sakura had knelt down when they fell back, and her long pink hair touched Naruto's face just a little. "Haim-chan?" Ginsuke asked, turning to face Benihime. "What's the matter?" Both girls simply held them without responding. Dosu approached and held out the scroll for his team, saying, "Obviously in your current states we're no match for you. You're both strong, Ginsuke, Naruto." Dosu picked up Zaku and coughed up some blood after he put down the Earth Scroll and said, "Here, take our Earth Scroll as reparation for your troubles. We have to depart right now because something needs to be looked into. However, I promise that Taisho Ginsuke and Uzumaki Naruto won't flee the next time." He picked up Kin as well and headed out. "Hold on," Sakura yelled. Dosu halted and pivoted. "I understand that Orochimaru is making decisions from the shadows, but why Naruto-kun?" Sakura inquired. "What did he do to him?" "You told us to kill them, but you got to them first, and instead of killing them, you gave them the curse seal. What's your game?" Dosu said, narrowing his visible eye. "I don't know, we were just following orders." Tenten leapt down to examine Lee as Team 10 emerged to check on their fellows. "That chakra was not ordinary and Naruto's stronger than I thought," Neji said, turning to face Ginsuke and Naruto. Naruto glanced at his hand, which he thought was covered in marks earlier. "What took place?" The blonde turned to Sakura and asked. "What happened to us?" Ginsuke said, looking disgusted, "My hand smells of blood." Ginsuke's hand smelled like iron. "Naruto, Ginsuke-kun," Sakura and Benihime said, glancing at the boys they wanted. "Taisho Ginsuke by birth and his own abilities, he is a truly worthy foe," Neji said, turning to face Ginsuke. After 5 days, with both scrolls, Naruto, Ginsuke, Sakura, and Hikari arrive at the tower. They bid Kabuto farewell. Benihime had proceeded to investigate something. They arrived at a room with a scroll that read, "Message," written on the wall. They have to open their scrolls now. As Sakura and Naruto untied their knot and started to unfold the scrolls, all 4 gulp. All it is a kanji, but then the scroll emits smoke. "This is a summoning spell," Ginsuke said, recognizing the sign. Naruto. Sakura. "Drop the scrolls, now." Sakura and Naruto followed his advice and threw the scrolls to the ground. A dark figure stood there in a poof. Astonished, Naruto exclaimed, "You're..." Iruka Amino was standing there, Naruto's father figure and former instructor. "Hey guys. It's been a long time," Iruka said with a smile. Naruto responded, "Iruka-sensei, why are you appearing from a summoning?" "This jutsu was created so that we could welcome the candidates after the second test. I'm fortunate to have been chosen to deliver the message to you 4. Astonished, Naruto, Sakura, and Hikari cried out, "Messenger." Iruka looked at his watch and said, "Yeah, you just made it." He closed it with a snap. "Congratulations. The second exam is passed by you. This calls for a celebration." Iruka exclaimed, "I wish I could take you to Ichiraku's for some ramen." Naruto jumped up and gave Iruka a hug, saying, "Yes, it's been a while since I had ramen, it makes me very happy." Despite getting a curse seal, Naruto was still very energized, which was encouraging. "Not even a traitor could change him," Ginsuke laughed. "At least Naruto-kun seems like himself," said Sakura, collapsing to her knees with fatigue. After a few minutes, the room, which had a floor and an upper balcony, was large and featured a statue of 2 enormous hands in a rat seal. Everyone gathered there. Kiba's poor puppy, Ninken Akamaru, is hiding in his jacket because he is still terrified of what Gaara did to those rain ninjas in the forest. Gaara looks bored as usual. Although Hinata was relieved that Naruto was dead, she saw that he was clutching his neck. Sasuke was trying to use Sai as a shield, but Ino was annoying him as usual. Sasuke was furious about what he had heard. "Wow," Ginsuke said, observing the Jonin. "Every other Jonin in Konohagakure is here." Naruto also noticed and exclaimed, "Whoa, Ka-chan, Iruka-sensei, Oji-san, the Eerie Woman, and Mega Brow-sensei are all present. The team is like a dream." Orochimaru pretended to be the Otto team's Jonin-sensei. Dosu and Zaku had been fixed by Kabuto. Startled, Hikari exclaimed, "Every applicant from Konoha is present." Sarutobi turned to face the younger generation and said, "It's incredible that every team from our village made it through. What's even more shocking is that, except for Ginsuke, they're all rookies." "Akamaru's acting strangely," Kurenai said, noticing her student's dog hiding. "Something's wrong with Naru-chan's chakra," Kushina thought. Looking at Naruto with concern, her son was flinching as if he were in pain, which made her concern worse. "So you made it with a scratch after all, Gaara," Bucky said, looking expectantly at his pupil. As with the anime, manga, the Chunin exam explanation is skipped. As he watched Kabuto go, Ginsuke squinted. Something about that man didn't feel quite right. "Darn it. They're getting more frequent." Naruto sprang to one knee and seized his neck. When Sakura saw what Naruto was doing, she said, "Naruto-kun, I was afraid of this." The proctor, Hayate, coughed a little and said, "So no one else is bailing out?" Sakura said, "Naruto-kun, perhaps you ought to step back as well." Naruto gave Sakura a startled look. Hikari was perplexed. "You two haven't been yourselves since Orochimaru attacked you and Ginsuke. Isn't that mark causing you pain?" "Mark? What mark?" Hinata looked. Sakura trembled. Please withdraw, I am afraid." Tears were streaming down her face as she still couldn't shake the terrible vision of Naruto destroying those other genin. She was afraid that Naruto might turn evil because of Orochimaru. Naruto didn't say anything. "You're in no shape to fight, Naruto-kun," screamed Sakura. Softly but firmly, Naruto said, "Sakura-chan, quiet." However, Sakura persisted, saying, "I know that you've been struggling to control your pain all this time, Naruto-kun." With a stern look, Naruto said, I have no choice but to tell the Jonin about that mark if you refuse to listen to reason." Then Sakura held up her hand. "Until then, remain silent, Sakura-chan," Naruto said as he swiftly took her hand down, opening his third eye and activating his Sharingan. "Nothing concerning the mark. Why do you have to act so strong?" Sakura sobbed even harder. "Naruto-kun, I can't stand to see you suffer." "And none of your business," Ginsuke said. "It's our choice, Sakura, because his Yuki had altered his mark. He was managing the pain far more easily than Naruto." "And Iki's right, Sakura-chan," Naruto said, nodding. "Keep this a secret from Ka-chan and the other Jonin. And keep in mind that I, Sakura, am a Jonin and our team's backup sensei. I fully authorize Naruto to continue the exam in my capacity as secondary sensei." Ginsuke glared at the girl. Sakura didn't put up her hand. Once more with a glance at Naruto, Sarutobi said, "It's just as I feared." Beside him, Ibiki said, "What can we do? Pull him out of the exam, have Anbu watch over him," Anko said in a whisper to the Sandane. "And you believe he'll simply leave in silence? Remember that he is both a Uchiha and an Uzumaki," Kakashi remarked. "Additionally, he is the son of Kushina-sama, so he will never run." Among the benefits of being the former Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi were improved senses of hearing, sight, and smell, which Kushina heard and listened to. "Stop talking gibberish. If necessary, I'll physically stop him, because if he tries to use his own chakra, that mark will react by drawing out all of his strength. The bearer's body and mind are corrupted by this forbidden jutsu." "Since when are you permitted to handle another Jonin's charge, Anko-chan?" "Kushina and I will handle it, as I am aware of some prohibited jutsu myself," Ginsuke said. "Ginsuke-kun," Anko said, turning to face him. "All right, I will let Naruto-kun continue," said Sarutobi, nodding. According to Anko, "Yes, Hokage-sama, Naru-chan, what happened to you in the forest?" Kushina asked, turning to face her son. "Okay, we're starting the preliminary, which will consist of combat like a tournament." Hayate coughed. "We will hold 10 bouts because there are 20 contestants in total, and the winners of those bouts will advance to the third exam." Omitting the remainder of the explanation, in her communicator, Anko said, "Open it." A large screen appeared when a panel on the wall opened. Hayate responded, "You fates are held in this electronic scoreboard not to send you all to the slaughter, but let's begin." As the names were shuffled across the board, everyone eagerly watched. Then it paused to show Akado Yoroi versus Uzumaki Naruto. "I'm going right off the bat, huh?" Naruto smiled after being shocked. "Hey, I couldn't have planned it better," Yoroi said, with a seductive expression beneath his glasses. "Oh please no. Not Naruto-kun," Sakura exclaimed in horror. Hinata turned to face Naruto and said, "Naruto-kun, will those who are listed on the board come forward?" Yoroi and Naruto approached and turned to face one another. "Akado Yoroi and Uzumaki Naruto, you two have been chosen to fight in the first bout. Do you have any objections?" Hayate inquired. He cleared his throat. Speaking, Naruto said, I'm okay. None, said Yoroi. The two caught the Jonin's attention. Heh, grinned the Auto Jonin. The only thing I can do now is stand here and watch over him, Naruto-kun, Sakura thought anxiously. All right, Dobi, show me how strong you are, Sasuke said as he observed Naruto. There's something wrong with Naruto-kun, Kohaku lamented. It's the curse seal that's causing his pain, Dosu realized. Good luck, Naruto-kun. Show us your flames of youth, Lee said, clenching his fist. With his arms folded, Neji said, HMPH Uzumaki Naruto, let's see if destiny has predetermined your victory. It's not getting better, Naruto winced as the mark caused another wave of excruciating pain. Hey, looks like the boy's in pain, Yoroi laughed. When Hayate declared, it's time to start the first bout, would everyone except the two competitors relocate to the upper balcony? He coughed once more. Before long, everyone started making their way to the balcony upstairs. After approaching the group, Ginsuke paused beside Naruto and said, Naruto, I must ask you, has the five-pronged spell worn off yet? Yeah, Aniki, when the curse seal activated it broke the spell. Naruto, don't use your Sharingan or your Biju powers, including your third eye, Ginsuke then muttered. You know because he marked you too, right? Asked Naruto, startled. She replied, yes, listen, if the mark is allowed to run rampant the consequences will change your life. This is what Naruto said. I figured that. The game will be halted if they notice any indication of that and I will have to stop you, keep that in mind. Suspended. Said Naruto, startled. This mark seems to respond to my chakra. If I use my chakra carelessly then the mark will take over, calling on and expending all the power I have, Naruto said, covering the seal with his hand. So for this match not only are my Sharingan and Biju powers forbidden, I can't even use my Mizumagami or Jutsu. So how can I do this? The future Biju King then turned to face his opponent. On the upper balcony, everyone was watching the two competitors below. Naruto, don't push yourself too far, Ginsuke thought. Naru-chan. Kushina's hands were clasped together concernedly. It's unfortunate that Yoroi's skills are the worst for you, Naruto-kun, grinned the Auto Jonin. All right, Hajime, said Hayate. Yoroi sealed his hands together and said, should I begin? Smirking, Naruto said, go for it. With his other hand glowing blue, Yoroi reached into his pouch and pulled out some shuriken. Naruto sketched a few kunai. Yoroi hurled Naruto his shuriken. The heir of Uzumaki then deflected them with his kunai, but he winced as the curse seal throbbed, saying, darn it. Naruto had to fall to the ground as Yoroi evaded his deflected shuriken. As Yoroi approached and attempted to seize Naruto, Naruto looked up. The son of the Yondaime, however, escaped it and kicked Yoroi after driving his kunai into the ground. Yoroi was pinned down when Naruto grabbed his arm. Yes, cheered Kohaku. However, Yoroi then used his free hand to seize Naruto's shirt. Naruto started to feel less strong. The Orochimaru, the Auto Jonin, grinned. My strength is fading, Naruto thought as his chakra began to drain. After freeing his arm, Yoroi gave Naruto a painful punch that knocked him off balance. Yoroi then gets up with amazing skill. Where did all my strength go? Asks Naruto, who is still on floor. Yoroi ran towards Naruto. Sakura exclaimed, Kun Naruto. Naruto frantically attempted to stand up, but as he turned around, he saw a glowing hand emanating directly from him. Yoroi then grabbed him by the forehead. After slamming Naruto to the ground, the elder ninja started to deplete his chakra. Behind his mask, Yoroi grinned and said, heh. Ginsuke was observing carefully. Naru-chan. Kushina was terrified and fought the urge to kill the ninja for touching her infant. Look, Hinata said. And Naruto-kun, why you're feeding on my chakra, Naruto realized. Heh, you finally figured it out, eh? Laughed Yoroi. That's right, said the Auto Jonin with a sickening grin. You'll have no choice but to call upon the power of my curse seal. That's it, open yourself up to all that delicious power. If you try to resist this path you will surely die. Yoroi's unholy ability is to absorb another's chakra. It's a brilliant art whereby simply pressing the palm of his hand against his opponent's body gives him the ability to consume their mental and physical energies. After struggling, Naruto kicked Yoroi away and said, "Oh you, Teme." After his chakra was partially depleted, Naruto finally got to his feet, but he was exhausted. With his glowing hand raised, Yoroi said, "Hehe, imagine a little vermin like you having any strength left to oppose me. It's his goal to keep me within his grasp, so Naruto muses, that was too close. If he makes contact with me again, I won't even have enough energy to move. This is my last chance, but how'd I? With her arms folded, Gaara said, Uzumaki Naruto, this is his only option? Naruto-kun. Lee thought, how can you call yourself a shinobi dobi? I guess you're a loser after all. Sasuke yelled as he turned to face his older cousin Kohaku, who turned away. Naruto glanced up at Sasuke before turning to face Lee. That's it, is the plan the Uzumaki heir has. Then Yoroi got ready, saying, heh, you couldn't have chosen a worse time to let your mind wander. He hurried at Naruto. This is it, I'll absorb all of his chakra. But then, just like that, Naruto kicked Yoroi up. Everyone was in complete awe. Guy and Lee exclaimed, what the? That's in shock. After Yoroi was launched into the air, Naruto materialized behind him. I'll have to apologize to bushy brows later, but for now, Naruto said. It's over, Naruto said, holding 2 fingers to Yoroi. Oh, shadow of the dancing leaf, Yoroi realized. Eat this, said Naruto with a smile, but then the ugly head of the cursed seal appeared, and the marks that resembled flames covered him once more. Kuso. Naruto coughed up blood, never again. The smirk on the Otto Jonin's face was smug with a wince. Naruto recalled Sakura pleading with him to stop, saying, Sakura-chan worries too much. The stains started to appear. I'm not just going to lie back and let it, Naruto said, struggling. He's reached his limit, Ginsuke said, squinting. Using his strong will, Naruto commanded, consume me. The marks started to reappear, startling those who were aware of the curse seal. No way, the curse seal is receding, Anko exclaimed in shock. Then Naruto grinned and said, let's go. Yoroi was then kicked by the youthful Biju King. Yoroi stopped the kick, saying, what a dumb amateur. However, Naruto made a feint. Ginsuke sneered, what a dumb amateur. Then Naruto delivered a punch in reverse. Naruto then landed a downward kick and a twist punch as they fell toward the ground. Now they were very near the ground, and now the finisher, Naruto said, contorting his body. Oni Renden, he said, delivering a twisting piledriver kick. Naruto retreated as Yoroi coughed up blood. Hayate approached the still Yoroi. I can tell without looking, he said, placing 2 fingers to his neck. Then, Hayate declared, I'm ending this match before it gets out of hand. Uzumaki Naruto wins the first battle and moves on to the finals. According to Sasuke, who grinned, you proved yourself as a true rival Dobi. Yeah, Kushina cheered. My son is that, Naruto-kun won? Kohaku exclaimed with joy. With a sigh of relief, Hinata said, Naruto-kun won, I'm so happy. TCH, Kiba snorted, it wasn't all that good. Ginsuke, a Kage Bushin in his Jonin attire, appeared and grabbed Naruto by the knee just as he was about to fall back. Well done. Ginsuke grinned down at Naruto. I see the techniques he used before the Oni Renden were derived from Guy's style. He must have memorized Lee's moves when Lee was sparring with me using his third eye while knocked out. The real Ginsuke, who was still on the balcony, realized. Naruto-kun, I'm so happy. Sakura grinned, I won't let Naruto outdo me, I'll make sure my match is just as exciting. Ginsuke thought of his own match. But it looks like something I can't use too often yet, it really wiped me out, Naruto said, looking up at Lee. Bushy brows, I owe my life to what I was able to memorize from you during your match with Nikki. I may have looked like I was knocked out, but I actually opened my third eye and watched your match through it. Naruto winced at the pain. The guy clone clenched his fist slightly and said, a little afraid. Lee was shocked, saying, I understand Naruto-kun, in just one encounter you managed to acquire and master the move I used on Ginsuke. Your Sharingan truly is a formidable weapon. Naruto-kun will only get stronger as time goes on, I feel. Your son is exactly like you, Kushina-sama, Guy thought. The Renge series moves a sequence of high-speed taijutsu requires a body that has been trained over a long period of time. The Renge is not something that can be mastered by use of Sharingan alone. Tenten was staring at Taisho Ginsuke. Last year's top rookie was Hyuga Neji, and this year's is Taisho Ginsuke. If they fought, I wonder who'd win. It's incredible that he's developing his full Biju characteristics at such a young age. It's no wonder the humans feared Jubi-sama, Ginsuke thought. Amazing. The curse seal should have had complete control over him, but he repelled it with sheer willpower, Anko said, glancing at Naruto. Brilliant, said the Otto Jonin, licking his lips. A few medic nin appeared. They and the medical corps are aware that Naruto is not a malevolent monster. Someone said, Naruto, we must escort you and put you under the care of the medical corps so you can receive the best medical treatment. Don't bother. A woman with brown eyes and blonde hair appeared. She had a well-proportioned figure and was dressed in a gray shirt, black pants, and a green jacket. A younger, black-haired woman wearing a black kimono and toting a pig was with her. With a smile, the blonde said, "I'll heal him myself." When they saw who it was, everyone gasped. The only authentic Senju remaining in the world is Senju Tsunade, one of the Sennin and the strongest kunoichi to come from Konohagakure, only surpassed by Kushina. Surprised, Ginsuke said, "Tsunade-heim." Quickly teleporting down, Kushina said, "Tsunade-sensei?" Tsunade grinned and said, "It's good to see you again, Kushina-chan." She turned to face Ginsuke and said, "Hey Ginsuke-kun." Her face flushed. Tenten let out a fangirl squeal, saying, "It's Tsunade-sama." I can't believe it. Tenten was a huge admirer of Kushina and Tsunade. Sarutobi almost passed out upon seeing his female pupil, and Guy and the other Jonin were taken aback to see the slug princess here. Tsunade approached Naruto and said, "You're the son of Kushina-chan, aren't you?" She studied him and then laughed a little. "Yup. He is undoubtedly Kushina-chan, your child. His wild streak is the same as yours." "Very funny, sensei," said Kushina. Flushed, she pouted as she turned her head. "We must take care of the cursed seal, Kushina," Ginsuke said. Incredulous, Kushina turned to face him and said, "Cursed seal?" "Yeah." Ginsuke nodded. Naruto glanced up quickly and said, "Aniki, please don't mention the meeting with Orochimaru to Ka-chan." Naruto covered his mouth in a hurry, but it was too late. Tsunade and Kushina gazed at them. "But my Yuki killed the part of Orochimaru that was in my mark, so this mark is mine alone," Ginsuke said with a sigh. "During the second exam Orochimaru attacked us and gave both of us a curse seal." Ginsuke then turned his head to reveal the 3 curved line mark, grinning. "But for Naruto, I'd use the Fujihoin until his Yuki can do the same." "Kushina, your clan was good with seals, right?" Ginsuke said, glancing at Naruto. "Yes." Kushina nodded. "I'll employ my jutsu." While nodding, Tsunade said, "That's a good fuinjutsu to use." "I'll stay here because I have a match coming up too," Ginsuke said with a smile. "After my match, I'll come see how you're doing." Naruto was led away by the 2 women after Hinata watched Naruto go. She used her dojutsu and saw that a purple chakra was emanating from a source on his neck. She also noticed that he had black marks on his skin that appeared during his match, but they vanished when she blinked. Turning to Kiba, Hinata said, "Kiba-kun?" Kiba turned to face her and said, "Hinata-chan?" A little uneasy, Hinata asked, "Did you just notice some odd markings on Naruto-kun?" "Oh, sorry Hinata-chan, I wasn't paying attention," Kiba said, shaking his head. The names for the second battle between Zaku Ibumi and Aburame Shino were displayed on the scoreboard. Zaku mockingly said, "Who's that loser?" Shino said nothing, and the 2 walked down and turned to face one another. Kabuto had fixed up Zaku. Sakura was shocked to see him all fixed and said, "But Naruto-kun tore off his arms. How can he be healed already?" "It's that Ado Nin, the one who fought Naruto-kun and ended up with torn off arms." "What? Do you think Shino-kun will be okay?" Hinata inquired. "I know he'll be fine," Kiba said, nodding. "Among all the individuals present, I would not want to confront him." "The second preliminary match, Hajime," declared Hayate. "Don't overexert yourself, Zaku," Dosu said. Glancing down at his teammate, the Ado Jonin disappeared with Shunshin. Zaku grinned. "You will suffer such severe pain that you will never be the same," Shino said. "Now, leave as soon as you can." Zaku laughed and said, as if, with one arm tied behind his back, "I bet I could beat you." Zaku crouched, one hand pointed at Shino. After that, the Ado Genin charged at Shino and hit him, but Shino used one arm to block him. "It will take more than one arm to defeat me." "Just stop talking," shouted Zaku. He said, "Let's see how you like this," as his hand cannon started to power up. Shino was taken aback, but it was not obvious from the high collar and sunglasses. Airwave is being beheaded. The airwave blasted Shino, who skidded across the ground and stayed still. Zaku grinned and said, "Hey." Kiba and Hinata were taken aback by how easily their teammate was defeated. Secret room around the curse seal. Kushina was drawing blood symbols on her son's neck. Kanai was all over them. "All right, that's it." She clapped her hands together and said, "Just a little longer, Naru-chan, and I'll be done." She flashed through hand seals and said, "Evil sealing method." She put her hand to his neck. Naruto moaned as the blood symbols moved up his body and formed a seal around the cursed seal. Naruto was worn out and fell to the ground. Kushina clarified, saying, "This seal should contain the curse seal if it resurfaces, but the power of your own will is the foundation of this seal's power. You must believe in yourself and want it to succeed. Otherwise, the curse might reappear." "You're so exhausted that you're not even arguing," Kushina said with a smile as she looked down at her son. "So, Kushina-chan, you're a seal mistress after all? Your late husband would be so proud," a familiar, eerie voice said, and Kushina turned to see the snake Sanin himself wearing a grayish-black outfit. "Orochimaru." Kushina sneered in disgust. "I'm not here for you, Kushina-chan, but I'm here for your son," Orochimaru said with a laugh. "What do you want with my Sochi?" Kushina said, assuming a fighting stance. "Oh, you should know, some people have something and a third party has to have it too." Kushina's eyes grew wide. "After all, you're her daughter," Orochimaru grinned, "and I want the Sharingan and your son's Biju skills." Kushina snarled. "Why? The newly created Otogakure village, I created that." "So it's your usual greed and delusions of grandeur," Kushina said with a frown. "I guess you could see that it's really difficult to find good help these days. Additionally, I require a variety of pawns at my disposal." Returning to the examination room, "You're on your feet, loser," Zaku grinned. Zaku gasped when he noticed something crawling on Shino after he got up. What the? Beetles were scuttling out of Shino's exposed flesh. Zaku shivered in terror at the terrifying scene, saying, "Bugs, they're swarming out through his skin, from inside his body." Then he heard something and turned to see a swarm of beetles approaching him. A beetle landed on Shino's finger as he raised one hand. "Do you like my little friends? They attack in swarms and consume their prey's chakra. They are known as parasitic destruction insects." Zaku snarled, "Oh, you'd better surrender, it's your only way out. Use your left hand to strike me again, and they'll be all over your unprotected back." Zaku looked out at the crowd. "Use your right hand to strike the swarm, and your front will open for my attack. You're finished either way." Shino wrapped his hands around a seal. "Unless of course, you had the foresight to prepare a backup plan." When Zaku met Orochimaru and the snake Sennin promised to help him, he started to recall his past. "I won't be disgraced any further," screamed the spiky-haired Otto Genin. "Who do you think you're talking to? You want to see a backup plan?" he said, extending both arms and aiming with his hand cannons. "What about this?" Shino was taken aback, as were the others' secret rooms. "You believe my Sochi is one of your pawns?" Kushina frowned. "Oh, he's a very special pawn, a real keeper," Orochimaru grinned. Returning to the examination room, "Take this," screamed Zaku, but then his right hand was severed from his arm. Zaku was shocked as he looked at his own severed hand. What on earth? Once more in the secret room, according to Orochimaru, unlike the team who are going through the exam right now. "Exam room, just now, while I was diverting your attention with all that helpful advice," Shino said behind Zaku, "my little friends were quietly making their way to key points on your body. Creeping down the tunnels you blast your gale winds through. Additionally, my friend is a real contingency plan." Growling, Zaku said, "Why you?" Then Shino gave him a backhand to the face. Secret room. "Those genin are disposable." Kushina's eyes turned red with slit pupils, her nails and teeth sharpened, her hair grew longer and wilder, and red chakra rose up around her as she growled. The chakra then solidified into a one-tailed shroud, and chains rose up from her back and wrapped around Orochimaru. With a somber expression, Kushina said, "Avoid my Sochi, Orochimaru." Her chakra started to swirl as she raised one clawed hand and said, "I can kill you even if you're a legendary Sennin like Tsunade-sensei." In her palm, a whole Rasengan developed. "Ah, I see that even though the Kyuubi is free, you retain traces of her chakra." The snake Sennin grinned as one might anticipate from a former Jinchuriki. "These are your special chakra chains, and to think you know your husband's jutsu. He wasn't even put off by the chains, which could even hold Benihime in her fox form." "Ah, ha, 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 ha," Orochimaru then chuckled. It was frightening to hear him laugh. Kushina continued to power up the Rasengan, saying, "This is hilarious." As soon as the chakra chains hit the ground, they disappeared. "You say one thing and do another, he broke them so easily." In shock, Kushina's Rasengan vanished. "What? Your son's curse sealing spell is ineffective. After all, he is the future Jubi, and that seal will eventually be broken by his enormous chakra." "So that's how you marked him," Kushina said, his eyes widening. "But my Sochi isn't like that." Orochimaru laughed. "If their hatred doesn't turn him against you first, he'll come to me seeking power once the village has nothing left to show him. Meanwhile, I think you were offering to kill me. Care to try?" he said, turning away. "Or are you all talking?" As Orochimaru used his terrifying ki, Kushina's eyes widened. Whether or not Kushina was a weaker ninja, her mind would be seriously damaged if a former Jinchuriki had been left with remnants of her demon's abilities. And Orochimaru disappeared. Did I miscalculate? I'm such a fool to think I could beat that monster alone. Kushina thought as her chakra shroud faded and she became slightly agitated. Exam room. After examining Zaku, Hayate said, "He's finished," and got up. Lee looked at Neji and said, What the, Neji, how did you? Through hand seals, Neji said, Byakugan. The veins beneath his eyes swelled. Astonished, Neji peered into Shino's body and exclaimed, "Whoa, I thought he summoned the insects with a spell, but his entire body is infested with them." Lee gave him a startled look and said, "What? There's a legend of a clan of beetle masters in Konoha," Guy clarified. "You'd be right." Guy and his group turned to see Ginsuke standing with his arms folded against the wall behind them. According to Ginsuke, the birthright of anyone born into that clan is that from the moment they enter the world, their bodies are given over to the crawling vermin to use as nests. In exchange for the abundance of the master's chakra, which the beetles use as food, the beetle masters make a deal with the bugs, according to which the swarms will respond to their summons, fight his battles, and submit to his will. "And you tell me that Shino is a member of this clan," said Lee. "Oh, he's not just a member, Shino is the heir," Ginsuke grinned. "Poor Zaku. Why did his arms explode?" Kin asked. When Zaku attempted to release the Zankuha, pressure accumulated inside his arm with nowhere to go. Dosu was thinking. From the look of things, this Shino character directed the beetles to plug up the exit holes in Zaku's hands until he finished his thought out loud, like a gun barrel when the path of a bullet is blocked. Zaku blew his own arm off. "We didn't know each other well, but he's a member of my team and teammates look out for each other. I'm making it my business to ensure there's payback," Dosu said, looking down as the medic Nin took Zaku away. Heh. "Aburame Shino is the winner," declared Hayate. That guy freaks me out," Kurenai said, shivering slightly. Shino ascended the steps according to Hinata. "So, Shino, nice job." Kiba nodded and said, "That was fantastic. Yes, don't disappoint the team, then." Kiba snarled, "Hey, all of a sudden, he's behaving like our boss." We're moving on to the third match," announced Hayate, coughing. Ginsuke felt a shunshin being used and swiveled to the side. Arriving in a whirlpool, "Kushina Shunshin speaking," Hikari said, "Kushina-sensei." Kushina grinned and said, "Hi. What do you mean by hello?" Sakura asked anxiously. "Tell us about Naruto-kun. Kushina-sensei. Is he okay?" After her son, Kushina won't take any chances with Orochimaru, so she reassured the girl, saying, "Naru-chan's just fine. Sakura-chan. Tsunade-sensei healed his wounds and he's asleep in the infirmary. Under the guard of Anbu, but asleep." Sakura sighed with relief. Ginsuke said, turning to the board. Tsurugi Masumi vs Sabaku no Kankuro was now displayed on the board. "My turn, at last!" exclaimed Kankuro, excited. "Kankuro isn't taking this seriously at all," thought Baki, their sensei. "Fool," Gaara said, frowning at her brother. "Him again," Ginsuke said, narrowing his eyes. Masumi, who wore regular glasses but essentially wore the same thing Yoroi did, was facing Kankuro. "Hajime. Even though you're a little brat, I'm not going to let my guard down like Yoroi did. Let me be clear. You'd be better off forfeiting the match," Masumi said. "Before you suffer harm. This won't take very long." "I agree," Kankuro said, slipping the enormous object from his back. "I'll be done with you in no time." "Don't try any tricks," Masumi said in a hurry to Kankuro with the first strike. "I'm going to win." He gave Kankuro a blow. After Kankuro deflected the blow, Masumi's arm started to encircle his own. What? Before long, Kankuro had Masumi coiled around him like a snake, and he dropped the object. "My body has been changed to allow it to enter even the smallest space in order to collect intelligence. With just the power of my chakra, I can manipulate my limp body and dislocate every joint. And with this same power, I can keep squeezing and constricting until your bones crack." Masumi squeezed even harder. "I'll squeeze you harder the longer you refuse to give up. I don't know what your own ninja art may be," he said, his grip becoming more firm as Kankuro's bones began to crack. "It doesn't even matter once your body is helpless in my hands, and I will snap your neck like a twig if you even hint at trying anything cunning to avoid losing. You're running out of time," he said, tightening his grip. "Hey, no way. Do you want to be the one who dies?" asked a startled Masumi. He tightened his muscles. Kankuro looked back and moaned, "Do you? Your wish is about to come true." Masumi tightened, and then there was a loud snap, and Kankuro went limp. He broke his neck. Lee exclaimed in shock. Hikari looked startled at Lee. Ginsuke, however, wasn't entirely sure. What a waste, said Gaara. Hayate let out a sigh. I killed the idiot because he refused to give up. And now I can return the favor, Kankuro said abruptly as he turned his head, revealing a wooden face. Masumi was then encased in a life-size puppet with 4 arms, spiky hair, and a robe. Astonished, Masumi exclaimed, "It's just a doll, a marionette." The actual Kankuro, who had been hiding since the start of the fight, was exposed when the bandages on the ground moved. His fingers held chakra strings that controlled the puppet. Even more shocked, Masumi exclaimed, "So that's the real body. He is a master of puppetry." Before the puppet appeared, Ginsuke thought, impressive. Kankuro had his puppet break the man's bones and said, "Think about how much more flexible you'll be with those bones of yours broken to bits. I'll leave your neck intact." What an interesting turn of events, Hayate thought when it appeared that things were going the other way. I'm glad I didn't stop the match earlier. Due to Masumi's inability to fight back, the winner is Sabaku no Kankuro. Wait, isn't 2 against 1 against the rules? Asked Hikari, perplexed. Ginsuke crossed his arms and said, "Not in this case, Hikari-chan." The heiress from Niji turned to face the Daiokai. "What do you mean, Ginsuke-kun?" Ginsuke grinned. "I'll explain. The second person is in fact a golem. It's known as the puppet technique. Kankuro manipulates a lifeless doll by projecting his chakra into threads. The golem is a ninja tool like shuriken or kunai." "It's time for the 4th match," declared Hayate. Once more, the board scrolled through names. Then Sakura was taken aback. "I'm battling Ino?" She and Ino exchanged startled glances. Haruno Sakura vs Yamanaka Ino was written on the board. The 2 kunoichi fell to the ground. Ginsuke's eyebrow went up. "I think Sakura will prevail. Ino has devoted more time to admiring Sasuke than to training." Ino brashly declared the foolish woman thought she could win, so she said, "I'll beat you for Sasuke-kun, forehead." Sakura snarled. Both girls unleashed amazing ki, in Ino's case, at one another, saying, "Bring it on, Ino, Buddha. I'm winning for Naruto-kun." This would have likely descended into a catfight, but it didn't. "Hajime!" exclaimed Hayate, who swiftly moved out of the way of the fight using the body flicker technique. The most important rule is to never interfere with a fight between 2 girls. Sakura pulled out her blade. She closed her eyes and held her sword at a 90-degree angle in front of her face, saying, "Ino, I'm going to end this in one attack." Her blade glowed pink and slowly started to shatter into shards as she said, "Scatter Senbon Sakura." Ino chuckled. "You broke your sword for," but before she could say anything more, a funnel of what appeared to be Sakura petals appeared directly in front of her. Ino was startled to feel numerous tiny blades pierce her body. Sakura quickly materialized directly behind Ino. After reshaping her sword, a cut on Ino's shoulder spurted blood. The Yamanaka hadn't even noticed the Haruno girl move. Sakura said, "Senka." Ino passed out and collapsed to the ground. Hayate was taken aback. He held up his hand and said, "Whoa, the Haruno won. It's Haruno Sakura who won." Gazing at Ginsuke, Asuma asked, "How did she do that?" The Daiokai was focused on his pupil. "I taught her that. That movement is not Shunshin but Shunpo, a much better and less flashy way to travel. She created Senka on her own. Sakura's sword is her clan's Kekkei Genkei. Ginsuke-kun is such a good sensei. I wonder if he'd teach me that," Kurenai said, admiring him. Guy cried out, "Ginsuke! To teach young Sakura-chan a wholly different but youthful move, your flames of youth blow strong." Lee cried out, "Guy-sensei! I'll perform 2,500 push-ups with my pinky finger if I can't learn that move." "No, Lee. We will use our feet to paint the entire village if we are unable to learn that move," Guy responded with a scream. "Guy-sensei! Lee, Guy-sensei, Lee!" A Biju-class Daiokai could only take so much of the 2 of them arguing, and everyone else was expressing their frustration. "I must ignore, IGN arg. That does it. I can't take it anymore. These 2 are so irritating." Ginsuke growled as they talked endlessly about what they would do if they couldn't master Shunpo. His fingers were tapping impatiently on his arm, and he was getting a tick in his eye. "I'm going to shut them up one way or another," he said, drawing his sword. Roared Tenkan. They both flinched before the enormous iron fist that turned one of the arena walls into rubble as he punched forward, and at the same moment, it mimicked his motion and almost crushed the green beasts. "I promise that if you Bakas say anything else about youth, I will shove my youthful shoe up somewhere so far that even Tsunadeheim won't be able to help you, Ginsuke said angrily. Guy and Lee both gave frightened nods sheathing his sword. Ginsuke grinned and said, good. Ginsuke-kun even managed to silence the most annoying duo in the village, Kurenai said, looking at her beloved. Ginsuke-kun handled that annoying guy with a way that is so exhilarating. Enko watched with great excitement as well. Kuso. Why didn't I think of trying that? Swore everyone else who witnessed the green duo's reaction. Neji and Tenten both sighed in relief that someone had finally managed to silence their overzealous teammate, and Sensei Kakashi started slamming his head into the wall and muttering, Baka. At himself, Asuma was very tempted to pull out his trench knives and tear himself a new one. Ino, you were my best friend, yet you threw it all away just so you could chase Sasuke, Sakura said, looking back at Ino with sadness as she made her way back to the balcony, but it was Ino's loss. How'd I do, sensei? She asked Ginsuke. With a warm smile, Ginsuke nodded and said, you did great, Sakura. Using Shunpo before a thrust was ingenious. Thank you, sensei. Sakura blushed at the compliment. Would Naruto-kun be happy for me? She asked herself. The medics took Ino to the infirmary so she could rest, and Hayate laughed, saying, Ginsuke, you are truly a miracle to our village. Once more, the names flashed on the board, this time reading Sabaku no Tamari versus Tenten. Tenten exclaimed, I'm so fired up after watching Sakura and Ino's battle. As if this little leaf girl has a chance against me, Tamari sneered, and they both landed on the ground. Well, I think Tenten is in serious trouble. Tamari is clearly a wind user. A wind master is the worst matchup for a weapons specialist, Ginsuke said, narrowing his eyes. Lee yelled, go Tenten, use your power of youth, as Guy and Lee supported Tenten. Guy also applauded, saying, Attaboy Lee, Tenten will shine all the way to victory with the support of our young fans. But when Ginsuke struck them with a shitload of ki, they abruptly stopped talking. He gripped his sword menacingly and said, didn't I tell you two idiots not to say that stupid thing? Guy, I think your student had better surrender, Ginsuke said gravely. Surprised, Guy said, surrender? However, why Ginsuke? The Daiokai calmly answered, because Tamari is stronger than her, I can sense it. Lee's fists were clenched. Ginsuke. What is so unyouthful of you to say? Tenten is a weapon expert, she'll prevail. Shaking his head, Ginsuke said, I see I can't help the unbelievably retarded. Why you? Lee was going to say that. The sixth match, Sabaku no Tamari versus Tenten, Hajime, declared Hayate. In the interim, two individuals wearing hats with binds that concealed the majority of their faces and balls were approaching the village while wearing black cloaks with red clouds on them. One was taller than his partner and carried a huge wrapped sword on his back. This is your village, isn't it, Itachi? The taller figure lifted his hat to reveal small eyes and shark-like features. I hear the Chunin exams are going on right now. He raised his hat to show his Sharingan eyes and said, I also hear that my Otuto is in the exams. Perhaps it's time to finally end this mission. Namikaze Uzumaki Uchiha Itachi is Naruto's older brother and the reason behind the Uchiha massacre. Since the gates were open to visitors because of the exams, they both entered the village. Returning to the tower after finishing her plan, Tenten threw a couple of shuriken at the Sunakunoichi. Normally, Tenten, being a master of weapons, would hit her target, but she was out of her league against a wind user like Tamari. The weapons fell to the ground just before they could reach Tamari. As if an invisible barrier had blocked them, Tenten also leapt back, calculating the number of tiles in front of her. Tenten, Guy, and Lee were all in complete shock. Guy-sensei, how could Tenten have missed? Lee asked his mentor. Guy nodded. I don't understand either, Lee. Tenten is a weapons master, she always hits her target. Is he serious? He doesn't even remember that Tsunagakure specializes in futon techniques. Ginsuke snapped back to the battle, looking at Guy incredulously. Tenten should surrender if that fan of Tamariz goes by anything. Tenten scowled and said, she must have escaped them somehow, but it couldn't be. She changed course and pulled out additional weapons. Tamari pulled out her fan and partially opened it to reveal a purple moon symbol, then grinned and said, whatever you're planning, it won't work. Tenten thought she could hit Tamari this time, so she threw her weapons again. However, Tamari swung her fan, deflecting the deadly projectiles with a burst of wind. This is the first moon. The battle will be over once you see all three. Tenten drew more weapons and threw them, growling obstinately and refusing to give up. However, the same outcome occurred this time. Tamari blew the weapons back with a blast of wind and opened her fan a bit more to reveal the second moon. Tenten became irate and pulled out 2 scrolls, putting them on the floor after going through hand seals. I was hoping to save this for the finals. Guy-sensei, is Tenten going to? Lee murmured. Guy crossed his arms and said, yes, Lee, she is. Scrolls. So that's where she keeps all her weapons, Ginsuke eyebrowed. Tenten yells, dragons rising twin. Tenten leapt between the 2 smoke dragons, which eventually faded to reveal the spinning scrolls. The jutsu's name comes from the smoke that the scrolls released, which took the shape of 2 serpentine dragons. Tamari grinned as she waited for her opportunity to attack. The third and last moon was now fully visible as she opened her fan. Tenten called forth what seemed like an infinite supply of weapons, then hurled them all at the Sanagakure Kunoichi. With ease, Tamari erected a wind barrier around herself, and all the weapons clattered to the ground after harmlessly bouncing off the steel-like barrier. Those with enhanced eyes, such as Neji, Hinata, and Gintusuke, could see the light reflected off the strings attached to Tenten's fingers, but Tenten smirked because she had a backup plan. Tamari and the audience were taken aback when Tenten appeared to bring the weapons back up to her and aim them at Tamari. You won't dodge or block this one, Tenten screamed. All of the weapons sped toward Tamari as she made a motion with her arms. Tamari, however, had had enough. It's over. Sickle weasel technique. She swung her fan. All of the weapons were blown away instantly by a huge swirling mass of air that shot from her fan. She then transformed it into a strong tornado that held Tenten in its grip and raised her off the ground. Tenten felt the wind technique cutting into her, and she let out a scream. It's over. Those currents have Tenten trapped. It's useless for her to continue, Neji said, activating his Byakugan. Concerned, Lee exclaimed, Tenten started to fall, but Tamari caught her on her now again folded fan. Landing on the hard metal caused Tenten to feel excruciating pain in her back, and she even felt some blood dripping from her mouth. The violence astounded Lee and the others. The young taijutsu master clenched his fists more tightly as his anger increased. Looking at her fallen opponent, Tamari said, how boring, I was hoping for a much better match than this. Hayate declared, Sabaku number Tamari is the winner. Soon after, Tamari threw Tenten off her fan, directly at the weapons strewn across the floor, but Lee caught his teammate with ease. Tamari grinned and said, nice catch. What's wrong with you? Shouted Lee. An opponent who has given it their all should not be treated that way. Whatever it is, just get that loser and yourself out of my sight, Tamari sneered and tapped her fan on the floor. Lee snarled, you dare? Surprised, Neji said, no, Lee. Lee charged at Tamari, saying, Konoha whirlwind. Lee was shocked when Tamari easily blocked his leg strike with her fan. You're not that fast after all, are you? Tamari grinned. Lee snarled and jumped back, saying, why you? Shining down, Guy said, that's enough, Lee. He touched his pupil's shoulder with one hand. Tamari, Gaara said, looking down at her sister with a hint of annoyance, how long do you intend to stay with that weakling? Return up here. What did you say? Lee asked, glancing up at the Ichibi Jinchuriki. With a sly smile, Guy shook his head and said, calm down, Lee. A word of advice for you. Suna Nin Lee hasn't fought yet, so you have no idea how powerful this kid truly is. Gaara's eyes narrowed. Tenten was picked up by the medic Nin as Guy and Lee ascended again. The scoreboard quickly fumbled through names once more, this time displaying Nara Shikamaru versus Tsuchi Kin. He and Kin went down, but Shikamaru went down so slowly that it seemed like he didn't even care. Aw man. This is so troublesome. I'm next. Shikamaru moaned. The two soon faced each other down, and Kin was staring at him with a sadistic smirk. He looked at Kin and said, and worse, she saw my jutsu in the forest, while I have no idea what she can do. Why'd I have to fight and against a girl? But if I don't, Asuma sensei will probably tell my mother and she'll be so troublesome. It's all I have, he said, putting his hands in a rat seal. You're not going to try that dumb shadow jutsu again, are you? Kin said. Putting his hands in the rat seal, Shikamaru complained, stop talking. The shadow imitation method. She threw 2 senbon with bells attached, and Kin easily leapt aside to avoid the Auto Kunoichi as his shadow shot toward it. Oh come on, not this old troublesome trick, Shikamaru said, avoiding those. Next, you'll start throwing senbon without the bells, and I'll be so busy avoiding the ones with bells that I won't hear the silent ones coming at me, he said with a knowing smirk. Kin smirked and made a finger gesture when Shikamaru heard the bells ringing. He turned to see threads. Aw man. Indeed, there were threads attached to the bells. Shikamaru was shocked and immobilized, and he saw Kin multiply into many in front of him. Kin explained, My bells have a special frequency that causes anyone who hears it to become unable to move and see illusions. Once I learned about your moves, it's over for you. All of the kin smirked and drew 3 senbon. But to Shikamaru it looked like a dozen rows of 3 senbon. What? I can't move. Kin struggled but was unable to move, and suddenly the illusion vanished. With a sigh, Shikamaru said, shadow imitation success. However, it's difficult to explain, but take a look at your threads. Shikamaru sighed once more. Kin was shocked to see that her threads had shadows when she looked down. I used my Kage main along the length of your wires. Tiny threads from this high up shouldn't cast shadows. Shikamaru's shadow emerged as the shadows grew and stretched. Not impressed, Kin sneered. So what? We now imitate one another's movements like a mirror. To her surprise, Shikamaru produced a shuriken from his weapons pouch, and she imitated his move. Are you crazy? You'll get hit too. He threw his shuriken, and she did the same. Shikamaru smirked and said, we'll see about that. He then leaned back. Kin laughed and imitated his motion, but then, kabong! Kin struck her head against the wall behind her and passed out. Everyone's mouth dropped open in shock. According to Shikamaru, a wise shinobi uses everything at his disposal. Hyatt declared. Nara Shikamaru is the winner. Impressive that he hides a great intellect under that lazy exterior, said Ginsuke with a sly smile. Now it's just me, Dosu thought. The only people who haven't fought yet are me, Ginsuke, Neji, Lee, Hikari, Kohaku, Hinata-chan, and that creepy girl from Suna and the last Auto Nin. Please don't let it be that Suna girl. Kiba prayed, eager for his own battle. With ki in his eyes, Neji turned to face Hinata. The Hyuga princess shuddered at his hateful expression. When the board reran the names, Teisho Ginsuke vs Inuzuka Kiba was listed. Interesting, Ginsuke said, raising an eyebrow. It seems to finally be my turn. If I am not next, Sakura will hate me because of my eyebrows, Lee sighed. Kiba clenched his fists and smiled, saying, Yahoo, I finally have an opportunity to defeat him. No Kiba, we can't beat Ginsuke-sama. He is above all Inuzuka, even Sume Dono. He is a true alpha, protested Akamaru. Ginsuke-kun is my boyfriend, but Kiba is my student. Oh, who do I root for? Kurenai said. Looking down at the two competitors, the Genjutsu mistress was torn. I love Ginsuke-kun. But I trained Kiba. Kurenai wished she didn't have to choose between her beloved and her gen in charge. Poor Kurenai, she's torn between supporting her boyfriend and her student, Asuma said, feeling sorry for her. Kiba and Ginsuke descended to the ground. He's stronger than mother. Gaara shivered. Yes, Gaara-chan. Even if you let me go, he would still be stronger than us. And that blonde boy will rule Yuki in the future. An equally terrified Shukaku told her container, Gaara-chan will kill us both if you fight him. Seeing her youngest sibling trembling, Tamari said, Gaara, what's up? Is it acting up again? Her voice betrayed her fear. No, Tamari. Mother is telling not to fight Ginsuke. He's stronger than both of us. He scares Shukaku. But he looks so human. And those golden eyes drive me wild, Tamari said. Looking down at him in shock, the Desert Rose blushed at her thoughts. Gaara fears him. He must be a monster worse than Gaara, Kankuro said, pale, after hearing his younger sister's words. Teisho Ginsuke vs Inuzuka Kiba, Hajime, declared Hayate. Ginsuke, I'm going to win this, said Kiba. Forgive me, Ginsuke-sama, Akamaru said, hesitantly, and assumed a fighting stance. HMPH, said Ginsuke, lowering himself into a fighting stance. Try it out. With his hands sealed, Kiba exclaimed, Shikyaku no Jutsu. Kiba fell to his knees, his features growing more savage, his eyes turning into slits, his finger and toenails growing to the length of claws, and his canine teeth lengthening into fangs as chakra emitted from his body. That's pretty neat, Ginsuke said, raising an eyebrow. Do you mind if I try? Red chakra began to drain from him as he put his hands in a rat seal. His eyes shrank to tiny slits, his claws grew to full battle length, his fangs grew and overlapped his lower lip, his hair spiked and took on the appearance of a rough mane, and some of his bangs fell down to frame his face like Akamaru's ears. The Daiyokai's eyes took on a red hue, and he fell to his knees as well. He growled at Kiba's dripping saliva. For a moment, Kiba was, what? Why are you so surprised? Where do you think you got those feral dog abilities from? Ginsuke grinned. He hurried ahead and was barely visible to Kiba. Ginsuke then punched Kiba in the face. As he crashed into the wall, Kiba moaned. How troublesome. I always figured Ginsuke was much stronger than he showed at the academy, Shikamaru said, startled. Choji was occupied with his chips, as expected from Naruto-kun's Aniki. PP poor Kiba-kun, Hinata said, feeling sorry for her teammate but happy for her loved sibling. That feral look suits him. He's even hotter than before, Tamari blushed. Oh, Ginsuke-kun is so handsome in battle, Kurenai marveled, flushed. Ginsuke-kun, I want to spend some private time with you after this exam, Enko said, licking her lips. Damn, he's strong. But so am I, Kiba nodded to Akamaru, muttering as he stood up, blood rolling down his face. After whimpering, the little white dog dutifully followed his partner, and Kiba threw a smoke bomb. Ginsuke swiftly observed the smoke swirling before him and arched an eyebrow. TCH. Who does he believe he is deceiving? The Daiokai emerged from the smoke with ease, but was taken aback when Akamaru lunged at him. Ginsuke let Akamaru bite his arm. The smoke cleared to reveal a seemingly unconscious Ginsuke with Akamaru sitting triumphantly next to him, his tail wagging, and Kiba smiling as he heard his pup bark triumphantly. Got him. Yeah, I did it, exulted the Inuzuka. I defeated him. Kurenai was somewhat taken aback. Kiba really defeated Ginsuke-kun? TCH. As if Ginsuke-kun would let a loser like Kiba beat him, sneered Hikari, who saw that the Niji heiress had folded her arms beneath her breasts. That little insolent Gaki actually thinks he's beaten my Ginsuke-kun. TCH, ninjin are so arrogant, smirked Benihime, who had arrived just before the match. She was posing as a normal civilian woman with blue eyes and chestnut brown hair, but she was extremely busty. Good job aka. The Inuzuka turned to face his dog as Akamaru rushed to Kiba, but to everyone's surprise, he bit Kiba on the arm. The surprise only increased when Akamaru poofed into Ginsuke. He used a henge. Kiba exclaimed. Startled Ginsuke smirked and jumped back, saying, your little friend knocked me out. Was a cage Bushin. The knocked out Bushin arrived, grasping Akamaru by the front legs, as expected. The Daiokai laughed. You can thank Naruto for that little trick. He's the one who told me before the exams what I should use. It shocked everyone that one of the village's best ninjas was employing tricks made by the most stupid genin. Thank you, sensei. I'm sure Naruto-kun will be very happy to know you used one of his tactics, Sakura said, blushing. My little Naru-chan, you are so much like your father, always helping others even when they don't really need it, shouted Kushina, laughing. After exhaling, Kiba said calmly, Ginsuke, if I were you I'd let go of Akamaru. Despite his oddball traits, Naruto certainly knows how to help his team, but tricks like that won't help Ginsuke-kun for long, Kurenai said, lost in thought. Ginsuke's eyebrows went up. Why should I? For this reason. Kiba flicked a small pellet at his dog. Akamaru. Akamaru growled as his fur suddenly turned dark red and his fangs lengthened. The white dog opened his mouth and ate the pellet. Akamaru then let out what sounded like a roar, kicked Ginsuke's Bushin, dispelling it, and landed perfectly, snarling. Ginsuke was impressed. He turned red after eating a soldier pill. However, given that his name means red, I'm not surprised. Kiba grinned and said, I'm going all out now. He also took the pill. Akamaru. Let's do this. The now red rabid puppy leapt onto the Kiba's back. He placed his hands in a seal. Jujin Bunshin. Two Kibas, each with a ferocious appearance, were visible in a cloud of smoke. Ginsuke grinned and said, good, I believe I will also change. His body soon started to radiate more red energy. However, Kiba and Akamaru. Kiba jumped at him without giving him a chance. Shikyaku number jutsu. They both tried to strike out, but a huge surge of chakra blew them away. Ginsuke was standing with a boiling red cloak covering his entire body. The cloak had three tails trailing behind it and resembled a wolf with some fox characteristics, like the shape of the tails and ears. Ginsuke's hair had turned into a long, spiky, feral mane. His nails had grown into long, curved claws that could easily tear through flesh and even stone, and his eyes, which had once been golden, were now a terrifying crimson with a look of pure bloodlust. He was crouching on all fours, and his face had three whisker marks that resembled Naruto's, but they were darker and longer, and his lips now had a black outline that resembled that of a wolf. Oh, Ginsuke-kun looks so hot in his three-tailed state, exclaimed a civilian woman, who was actually a certain nine-tailed queen of the Biju, as she licked her lips in excitement. Ginsuke smiled with razor-sharp teeth. Oh, I haven't had the opportunity to cut loose like this in a long time. It feels fantastic. With a loud roar, he threw back his head and exclaimed, R-A-H-H-H-H. Both Akamaru and Kiba were smashed into the walls by the enormous shockwave caused by the roar. The shockwave was so powerful that everyone had to cover their faces, even Sarutobi had to shield himself from being blown away. It seems my power has grown even further than I remember. Ginsuke halted his roaring and searched for his opponents, who were cratered in the wall. To everyone's surprise, a giant arm of chakra shot at the two Inuzuka and seized them both in its crushing grip. After bringing Kiba back, Ginsuke gave him a hard punch to the face, sending the younger dog hurtling into the walls once more. Eventually, Kiba was able to shake the cobwebs off his head, and Akamaru was lying beside him. Ginsuke's power had completed his metamorphosis. Kiba let out a groan and then got up, or at least tried to. He saw with horror what was holding him down. A huge, clawed hand, made of chakra. Ginsuke was charging a red chakra beam with his mouth open. When Neji turned on his Byakugan, the power was almost blinding. The blast was fired by Jinsuke Sanbiko Amari. Everyone had to cover their eyes as a broad arc blast of concentrated chakra erupted from his mouth and filled the arena with a white light. Ginsuke was still in his three-tail state when the light faded, and both Kiba and Akamaru were unharmed. Powering down, Ginsuke said, "You see Kiba? You would be dead now if I were your enemy." With a nod, Kiba declared, "Proctor, Ginsuke's too strong for me, and I want to give it up." "Very well, winner of the 7th match Teisho Ginsuke," said Hayate, nodding. With a somewhat dejected smile, Ginsuke said, "Sorry Kiba, I guess I went a little overboard." Everyone was taken aback when Medic Nin led Kiba to the tower's infirmary. Weakly, Kiba laughed, "It's okay, Ginsuke, you are a true alpha, and I know now that I will never be able to compete with you." The Medic Nin put Kiba on a stretcher. Ginsuke returned upstairs, completely unwounded. Kurenai hugged him and said, "Thank you for being so forgiving of my student. Ginsuke-kun, you seem much stronger than you did before, I can tell." After giving her a hug in return, Ginsuke said, "You're welcome, Kurenai-chan." Kurenai gave her man a seductive smile and said, "Jin-kun, I told you to call me Nai-chan." The snake mistress sulked, "No fair, Nai-chan. I want Ginsuke-kun to hug me too," as Anko unexpectedly appeared and began hugging Ginsuke as well. Feeling their breasts against his face and back, Ginsuke flushed deeply and thought, "Man, how did I ever win these two beautiful women's love?" The three made a number of the other guys envious. Naru-chan, soon sweetie, soon during the 1-month break before the finals. Kushina laughed and pictured herself and her son in their respective roles. "So Jin-kun's found 2 more mates already? But I shall be his alpha woman," said Benihime, raising an eyebrow in her civilian disguise. "All right, now it's time to choose opponents for the next match," declared Hayate. Everyone watched as the board came back to life. Hinata nervously stopped the Medic Nin as they were carrying Kiba, holding up a container of ointment and saying, "This is a healing salve for Kiba-kun and Akamaru." "Nice of you to worry about everyone else," Kiba said, "but take some of that worry away from yourself." Hinata looks afraid. It's understandable. Poor girl gets her strength from Naruto, but with him currently in the infirmary dealing with Orochi Tomi's curse seal, I'll have to give her the strength Naruto would, Ginsuke said, listening in with his enhanced hearing. "There are only 8 of you left: Sasuke, Hikari, Kohaku, Choji, Neji, Lee, one of the Auto Genin, and that girl from Sanagakure." Kiba was now looking incredibly serious. "Listen Hinata, if they pair you off against the Sunanin, withdraw immediately. And not just her. The same goes for Neji. If you have to face him, don't fight forfeit. He's so cruel to you, you'd be torn to pieces." Neji scowled at Hinata, who was now unsteady. "Well then, the next match will be," Hayate declared, displaying the opponents selected by the boards. Hyuga Hinata versus Hyuga Neji. The poor Hinata appeared completely frightened. Neji simply grinned menacingly. He would demonstrate Hinata's worthlessness to everyone. Kiba moaned, this is exactly what he was afraid of. Kurenai was afraid for her surrogate daughter, Hinata. Hinata looked scared, Ginsuke said, narrowing his eyes. "Oh no, poor girl." These contests get more and more intriguing, Sarutobi thought. Despite Hinata's reluctance, Neji and she descended to the arena floor. Neji replied sternly, "I never dreamed we'd find ourselves fighting each other, Hinata-sama." "Neji ni-san," spoke Hinata in a whisper. "Are they siblings?" Hikari asked in shock. According to Ginsuke, both are members of Konoha's oldest and most illustrious family, through whose veins flows the elite and most accomplished blood, the Hyuga clan, but they're not brother and sister. Looking at him, Sakura asked, "Then, how are they related, sensei?" "Well, it's complicated," Ginsuke adding, "but I suppose you could say they're related in the same way that a tree branch is related to the trunk." "Branch and trunk?" was the title Hikari gave her head. Lee said, "Yes. Hinata-chan is a member of the main branch of the Hyuga clan, and Neji is a member of the cadet branch that supports it." Sakura looked dejected and said, "So it's family fighting family? That'll be hard on both of them." Lee placed his hand under his chin in a contemplative position and nodded, saying, "Yes, except." "What?" Sakura asked, turning to face Lee. Lee grumbled, "There's been strain between the main and cadet branches of Clan Hyuga for some time. Relations aren't exactly friendly." "Why's that?" wanted Hikari to ask. According to Lee, "I don't know all the details, but it sounds like a pretty common tale among older families. The first generation of the Hyuga clan made all sorts of rules and decrees that favored the main branch of the family. In order to preserve the family and purity of their blood, it's said that members of the cadet branch still burn with anger and humiliation." Gazing down at the two Hyuga, Ginsuke nodded and said, "So it's one of those family showdown things. It's been a long time since I last saw one of these. I have a bad feeling about this match." "Well, please begin the match," declared Hayate. Neji positioned himself and said, "Before we begin, there's something I have to point out. Hinata-sama." He gave her a fierce look and said, "You're not cut out to be a shinobi. Withdraw from the match." Hinata let out a gasp. "You're all sweetness and light. A peacemaker, not a troublemaker. You're easily led, not a leader." Hinata glanced down at what her cousin had said. "And you have no self-confidence. You've got a world-class inferiority complex. So I know you'd have been more comfortable and content staying at the genin level, but applicants for the higher-level Chunin selection exam must compete as a trio, and you couldn't bear to let your teammates down. The truth is, your participation has been reluctant from the start, hasn't it?" No, you're wrong. I really wanted to change that about myself. So, of my own volition, Hinata denied saying. Kurenai recalled. Hinata. She recalled that on the day of the Team Genin exams, she had explained Hinata's ninja career to her cold-blooded father, and the bastard simply let her take her without any protests. According to Hiyashi, Hinata is weaker than even her sister Hanabi, who is 7 years old. In her own way, Hinata is trying to improve herself, Kurenai said, scowling down at Neji. "A leopard doesn't change its spots. A failure always fails, and a weak personality won't become strong." The more Neji denigrated Hinata, the more self-conscious she felt. Ginsuke's curse mark pulsed and his eyes flashed red. How come that heartless bastard did it? His fangs were exposed and his claws grew longer. His skin started to be covered in rippling marks like Sessamaru. Ginsuke was brilliant, even among his kind, but he was modest, never bragging about how weak other people were. Neji was someone he detested. "Jin-kun, I haven't seen him this angry in 5 centuries, Benihime said, looking at him anxiously. Neji went on, "It's precisely because of the unchanging nature of mankind that differences between people are born. It's why we've coined terms like elite and failure. It doesn't matter who you are, we're all judged on the basis of our looks, our intelligence, our talent, or our personalities, just as we judge others in their turn. Yes, it's a form of discrimination, and the factors that it's based on don't change. We have no choice. We must live within the boundaries set for us by the judgments of others. It's as unchangeable as the fact that I'm of the cadet branch of the family, and you're a member of the main branch." Ginsuke shuddered, barely controlling his ki, and was now covered by the curse seal. He was crushing the rail with his clenched hand. A number of people became alarmed after sensing his ki. Gara was shaking with fear. Enko was shaky, too, but lustful. "I've seen through many things with this all-seeing Byakugan eye, and so I know, this courage you're displaying is just a bluff." Hinata made an effort to retract his statement, saying, "No, I really want to." "The Byakugan?" Sakura asked, turning to face her sensei. Ginsuke controlled his ki, allowing those who could sense it to relax. He said, "They say the Uchiha clan can trace its origins back to the Hyuga clan." The Byakugan that he mentioned is the Kekkei Genkei, passed down in the Hyuga family. A dojutsu similar to the Sharingan, but in its penetrating perceptive ability, the Byakugan surpasses the Sharingan completely. He crossed his arms over his chest, but his curse seal was still on. "How dare he say that my holy dojutsu is less good than that freaky white eye?" Sasuke glared at Ginsuke with daggers. Neji used his hand seal-free Byakugan to silence Hinata. He appeared nearly demonic as a result of his hateful gaze toward Hinata, the bulging veins beneath his eyes and his pupils. Hinata turned away, searching for something else. She started to shake in fear. Neji laughed. "My eyes can't be deceived just now. To escape my stare, you averted your own eyes." Glancing towards the upper left, it signaled your recall of a past experience, one that brought you pain. When you subsequently glanced to the lower right, It indicated that you were envisioning physical and mental agony. In other words, you recalled your own previous experiences, and based upon those memories, you imagined the outcome of this match. You foresaw your own defeat. Hinata was shaking and raising her arms. Even now, as you bring your arms up in front of your body as if to shield yourself, your body is signaling your desire to create a wall between us, to create some distance from me, because everything I have said so far has been right on target. Hinata was shaking like a leaf in the wind. Poor thing, her gorgeous lavender eyes started to well up with tears. A single quivering hand was raised to her mouth. In addition, Ginsuke gave a fierce snarl, his ki rising once more. The way you're touching your lip, it's another of those tender intimate behaviors that expresses the agitation in your heart. It's a defensive reflex, an attempt to ease your own anxieties and doubts. It's completely clear, whether you admit it or not, that you are aware that you can never change yourself. Yes, she can. Ginsuke smashed the balcony bar because she could take no more. The young Jonin with silver hair, trembling in anger and sporting rip marks all over his body, caused everyone to gasp. Ginsuke-kun? Kurenai asked, looking shocked. When Hinata woke up from her self-pity party, she saw her Naruto-kun's brother figure in a rage. You can't just arbitrarily decide these things about other people, you bastard, said Ginsuke. Show him, Hinata. Beat up this bastard. Hinata turned to face him, suddenly feeling more courageous, and said, Ginsuke-san. Ginsuke yelled with his yuki. Come on, Hinata. At least talk back to him. Just hearing him has made me angry, and you're the one who's fighting him. Beat him for Naruto. Naruto's in the infirmary waiting to hear if you passed the exam or not. Do it for Naruto. Prove to Kushina that you're worthy of Naruto. Glancing at him, Kurenai said, Ginsuke-kun, do it, Hinata-chan. Show me that you helped my Sochi, asked Kushina, pumping her fist in the air. Naruto-kun. Hinata visualized Naruto's joyful face, gaining courage and strength from the vision. He's strong but so annoying, Neji said, turning to face him. He was taken aback when he turned to face Hinata. Hinata's terrified expression had vanished. She now had the solemn expression of the tiger that was concealed beneath the mouse. Thank you, Ginsuke-san. Naruto-kun. Watch me, Kushina-sama. I'll show you that I'm a good wife for Naruto-kun. As she went through hand seals, Hinata thought. Naruto sneezed twice in the infirmary, saying, Achoo, I wonder if anyone was referring to me. So you're not going to withdraw, then I won't be responsible for what happens here, Neji observed, noting that the expression in her eyes had changed. The veins beneath Hinata's eyes started to protrude, just like Neji's eyes had. Hinata recalls Naruto's words of encouragement and his assistance in getting everyone through the first exam. Never underestimate me. I don't quit and I won't run. I'll accept your stupid question. Even if I end up a genin my whole life, I'll still become Hokage, even if by pure stubbornness. I never go back on my word. That's my ninja way. Hinata lowered herself into the Jiyuken stance of her clan and revealed her own Byakugan, saying, I don't want to run anymore. Neji-ni-san, let's fight. Okay then, Neji said, lowering himself into the stance too. That's, Lee gasped. They have the same Jiyuken style after all. Even her stance is similar to Neji's. Jiyuken? Asked Sakura. Lee tightened his fists. The strongest taijutsu style in Konoha. I've mentioned it before, I'm sure, that the strongest junior ninja is a member of my own team. I was referring to Hyuga Neji. Neji and Hinata began trading Jiyuken blows right away. The Hyuga battle was watched by all apparently. Hinata was hit. Did she get him? Sakura asked, looking surprised. No, it's just a scratch, Ginsuke said, shaking his head. Lee clarified, but a scratch is all it would take. That's why the Hyuga clan is often regarded as Konoha's most illustrious family. With a bewildered expression, Hikari asked, what do you mean? Guy took over the clarification. Unlike the taijutsu that Lee and I specialize, which is all about beatings, bruises, and broken bones, a style its proponents call Goken or ferocious fist, the Hyuga clan employs Jiyuken or gentle fist to inflict damage to the enemy's kirakuki, through which the chakra flows that leads to the breakdown of the internal organs, destroying the foe from within. It doesn't look like much, but the effect grows gradually after the initial attack. Ginsuke continued. There's no way of strengthening the internal organs, unless you have a unique body alternating Kekkei Genkai, so any enemy struck with that blow is going to succumb. The Jiyuken showdown between Hinata and Neji was both beautiful and lethal. In fact, Hinata began to win, saying, yes, even I can. Hinata's pushing him, Shino thought. Kurenai observed her pupil, Hinata. Yeah, Hinata-chan. exclaimed Kushina in cheer. What kind of people are they, to attack the Kirakuki? Sakura asked, perplexed. Ginsuke nodded as he turned to face Li replied, allow me. Sakura-chan, the Kirakuki is a kind of network of energy lines, spread throughout our bodies much the same way as the human circulatory system. It's like a system of vessels that carry chakra throughout our bodies. You might say the Kirakuki is a passageway for chakra, Ginsuke said, taking over. Yes, and it's delicately intertwined with the organs that manipulate chakra attack the Kirakuki, and the organs will suffer as well. Lee concluded his remarks. Gazing at his opponent, the youthful Guy clone clenched his fist. It's understandable, Guy said to his student, because Lee views Neji as his worst enemy. Sakura responded, it doesn't seem possible. I mean, this Kirakuki thing is just energy lines inside the body, so how do you attack something you can't even see? Said, they can those too. Their Byakugan can see them, and Jayuken attacks are different from the purely brute force physical kind. You take your own chakra and release it through the energy portals in your hands, forcing it into the body of your foe where it can inflict massive damage on the enemy's Kirakuki. Neji and Hinata both struck simultaneously. Everyone eagerly awaited the outcome. However, as her heart ached from Neji's blow, Hinata abruptly coughed up blood. So this is the full extent of the main branch's strength? Neji said, sounding disappointed. Hinata pushed Neji's hand away and aimed her own Jayuken strike, saying, not yet. Neji sidestepped, grabbed her arm with one hand, and poked two fingers. What a fighter, said Ginsuke, narrowing his eyes. Don't tell me. Kurenai pondered. Sarutobi's analysis of Neji revealed that those who have referred to him as the greatest genius in the history of the Hyuga clan haven't exaggerated their claims. Gaara smelled blood and watched, trembling in barely controlled bloodlust. Control your host, Shukaku. Ginsuke looked at her and let out a little burst of demonic ki. The effect was immediate. Gaara calmed down and gave Ginsuke a real fearful look. Hey, it seems Shukaku-chan is still as crazy as ever, Benihime said, turning to face Gaara. However, she was never a match for me, and she will never be a match for Jubi-sama, Ginsuke-kun, or Naruto-kun. Neji pulled back the sleeve of Hinata's jacket, exposing a dozen tiny red marks on her arm that looked like bug bites. It can't be. You mean from the very beginning? Exclaimed Hinata in shock. Precisely, my eyes can detect the Tenketsu. Ginsuke continued, along the Kirakuki that we spoke of earlier there are 361 chakra points, no larger than the prick of a pin. These nodes are called Tenketsu, and, in theory, if you can accurately hit them, you can halt the flow of an enemy's chakra, or enhance it, controlling it in any way you wish. But while we're on the subject, let me add, these Tenketsu, they're undetectable, even to a Sharingan eye and even my enhanced vision, and regardless of having all-penetrating eyes, to be able to in the heart of battle perceive so accurately. And Neji used a palm strike to knock Hinata off balance. Hinata was breathing heavily as she skidded across the floor, indicating that Neji's attacks had injured her body. Stunned, everyone watched. Hinata-sama, this is the unalterable difference in strength, the distinction that separates the elite from the failure. This is the unchangeable reality. Neji responded, from the moment you said you wouldn't run, your defeat was inevitable. The only possible outcome was your present despair. Withdraw. With a struggle, Hinata stood up and said, I never go back on my word. As Ginsuke observed, in fact, Hinata was able to stand up, saying, because that's my shinobi way, too. Whoa, Hinata, she's brave, just like Naruto. Ginsuke grinned. Kushina grinned as she looked down and said, Hinata-chan, I would adore having you as my daughter-in-law. I noticed that she's always watching Naruto-kun, Sakura said, nodding. Too bad he's too dense to notice. Ginsuke laughed. Hinata gasped with exhaustion. Come here, Neji said, unlocking his Byakugan. Hinata coughed as she suddenly experienced another excruciating throb in her chest. She spat blood out of her mouth. Everyone appeared astonished. That kid is already at her limit. One more attack and she'll. Kurenai scowled. Ginsuke grimly remarked, but I doubt that, against a fighter like Neji, even own Naruto would prevail. Neji's strikes on her Tenketsu node points have completely arrested the flow of Hinata's chakra. She's lost the capacity to perform the Jayuken attacks that flood her chakra into her opponent's body. This fight is as good as done. In addition to battling the curse seal that Orochimaru placed on him, Naruto has not yet fully awakened his potential as a Jubi. It seems inevitable. Guy anticipated Neji will prevail. Feeling her mother's excitement at the sight of blood, Gaara shuddered. Neji gave Hinata a homicidal glare. Those eyes, so creepy. Hinata, she won't get killed, will she? Ino, who had been permitted to return to watch the final matches, shuddered in fear. His level of strength, it's not a fair fight, he's just too strong, shook Sakura, who was also shaking. Hang in there, Hinata-chan. Remember, you're doing this for my Sochi, Kushina said, clenching her fist in concern. Naruto-kun. Hinata pondered. Her eyes have regained their strong expression, Neji thought. Hinata charged at Neji, launching no chakra-charged blows that Neji easily sidestepped. I've been watching you for years, Naruto-kun. Why is that? I'm not sure what it is, but whenever I watch Naruto-kun, I feel a surge of bravery rising within me. I believe that even I am valuable if I just give it my all. That's how I feel at first. Then Neji gave Hinata a palm under the chin. Everyone appeared anxious. Kurenai watched her student anxiously, saying, Hinata, you always quit, but you started trying to change at some point. You trained relentlessly, but you made a lot of mistakes on missions. You stumbled, you lacked self-confidence and were weak. That is no longer the case, though, because the Hinata I see now has an expression in her eyes that is unlike anything I have ever seen. Naruto-kun. Hinata hurried at Neji once more. I've been observing you for a long time, but now that you're finally looking at me, I can feel your eyes even from a distance. Hinata was hit in the chest by Neji. The princess of Hyuga collapsed to the floor. Don't you know when to quit? From the start, your attacks have been completely ineffective. Please, Hinata, call this off. Kurenai scowled. Even though you lost the match, you were able to change who you are. You performed admirably. Ginsuke recalled what Hinata had said before. He had a somber expression. She genuinely has the same heart as Naruto. Guy said, that's Neji's master stroke. It targets the heart. It's pity, but the girl can no longer even stand. Given that the match cannot continue, said Hayate. Hayate, don't end the match yet, Ginsuke retorted. What are you talking about, sensei? She's got nothing left. She's already collapsed, Sakura said, looking at him anxiously. In reference to the floor, Ginsuke said, not quite yet. I think she's got more left than you think, Sakura. When Sakura and the others looked, they saw something completely startling. Hinata was shakily standing up once more. Neji responded, why are you getting up? If you push too far, you really will die. Hinata stood up and said, I can't bear to look uncool in front of his mother, and I want to prove myself to the person I've loved for a long time, whose mother is watching me. Neji turned his Byakugan on once more. This isn't over yet, said Hinata. You're not fooling anyone, Neji replied sternly. I can see with these eyes, it's taking all your strength just to stand. You were burdened from birth with the destiny of the Hyuga clan's main branch. You've hated and punished yourself for your own weakness and frailty, but you can't fight your nature or change your fate. But you need not suffer anymore. Be at peace. Weakly replied Hinata. But, you're wrong, Neji-ni-san. I can see it now, that even more than me it's you who are torn and suffering, caught between the destinies between the main branch and cadet branch of our clan. Neji's expression changed from one of shock to one of utter hatred. Then, determined to kill Hinata, he charged at her. Neji, the match is already over, exclaimed Hayate, who hurried to stop him with the other Jonin. Neji was rendered immobile by the other Jonin. Guy was preventing Neji from moving forward from behind, and Ginsuke had stopped Neji's arm from being gripped tightly, causing pain. Hayate had one hand in a handseal with Neji, and Kurenai was prepared with a kunai pointed at his leg. This entire battle was being ignored by that slothful Kakashi, who was reading his priceless ICHA. Guy replied with authority, enough, Neji. Before this began, you swore you wouldn't drag the issues you have with your family's main branch into this. Neji was struggling. Well, why is it that the other Jonin are getting involved? Special protection for the main branch, eh? Don't take another step, Hyuga Neji, or die, Ginsuke snarled and tightened his hold. Hinata collapsed to her knees, coughing up blood as her heart pounded. Hinata. Kurenai rushed to her student's side. Hinata. Ginsuke, Sakura, Kushina, and Lee approached her side. The sick Hyuga heiress was surrounded by them. Hinata-chan. Hey, are you all right? Inquired Kushina. She doesn't look good, her face is so pale, exclaimed Sakura. Hinata opened her eyes weakly and saw that they were worried. Did I prove myself, Kushina-sama? She asked. Are you going to let me be with Naruto-kun? She closed her eyes. Did I change a little, Naruto-kun? Hey, you, Ginsuke-san. Slowly, Ginsuke turned to glare at Neji behind him. Neji responded. A couple of words of advice. A true shinobi warrior would have too much class to make a spectacle of himself by cheering during a serious match. And one more thing. You may as well accept who you are. You are a genius like me, and that worthless girl is a failure. Once a failure, always a failure. You want to try me, Ginsuke asked, his eyes flashing red as his curse seal covered him once more. Smirking, Neji said, "Hey." The insult to Hinata was too much for Ginsuke to handle, so he charged Neji with the intention of killing him. "Oh!" Sakura gasped. Benihime exclaimed, Jin-kun, in shock. Ginsuke stopped when Lee blocked him at that precise moment. In Ginsuke's words, "Lee, get out of my way," Lee replied, "I understand almost painfully well what you're feeling, Ginsuke-kun. But, we have to limit our battles to the confines of the scheduled fights. Having seen this failure strike down and defeat a genius through sheer force of will, it really makes you look forward to the final rounds, even though his opponent could very well be me. But even if it's you in the finals, Ginsuke-kun or even Naruto-kun, I'll have no regrets." "Fine," Ginsuke glared and turned away, resigning. Lee gave his sensei a dazzling thumbs up as he looked up at him. Guy gestured back, "Lee, you incredible child. Good." More blood was coughed up by Hinata like everyone else. Ginsuke turned to look at the sick girl in disbelief. Kurenai felt Hinata's pulse and hurriedly unzipped her jacket. It was becoming weaker and extremely unstable. Kurenai gave Neji a homicidal glare and said, "Oh no, she's going into ventricular fibrillation. He really intended to kill her." Neji laughed, "Instead of wasting time scowling at me, you'd better take care of her." "Where are those medics?" "Hurry," yelled Kurenai. She said, "Kurenai-chan, those medics will never get her to the hospital in time. I'll take her to someone who can help her even better." Kurenai moved aside and said, "Ginsuke-kun, thank you. If she were to die, I could never forgive myself or face you and Naruto, Kurenai-chan." Ginsuke approached Hinata and gently lifted her. "Never again." Ginsuke said, "I refuse to lose any more pals." Ginsuke glared at the medic as he said, "Ginsuke-san, we must. Get out of my way, I'm faster than you are." Ginsuke then hurried out, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. The others and the medics watched him go. "Jin-kun," said Benihime with a smile. "Oh Kami-sama, please let whoever Ginsuke-kun has in mind save my student," Kurenai prayed. Ginsuke's flames of youth burned strong. Guy grinned as she watched. Did Guy already forget Ginsuke's threat? Everyone moaned. Alongside Ginsuke, Ginsuke snarled as he ran, "Remind me to kill Guy." In just a few minutes, he arrived at the hospital and greeted Tsunade at the door. He was essentially a blur to the civilians. Tsunade was taking a brief break after checking on Naruto's health. She exclaimed, "Ginsuke-kun, what brings you here?" upon seeing her beloved. "Hey Tsuhime, listen, this girl in my arms is the heiress of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hinata, and she's in really bad shape. Please save her," said Ginsuke. Tsunade said, "I'll do whatever I can to help her, Ginsuke-kun," and she gestured to multiple medic nin with a snap of her fingers. "You called Tsunade-sama?" Tsunade commanded, "Get this girl into the emergency room stat." "Yes Tsunade-sama." They arrived right away with a stretcher. Hinata was put on the stretcher by Ginsuke. After that, they took her to the emergency department. "I have to go back to the tower, Tsuhime, so I'm sorry I can't stay longer," said Ginsuke. Before leaving for the hospital, Tsunade gave him a quick wink and said, "It's okay. Jin-kun, you can make it up to me after the preliminary, during the 1-month break." After that, Ginsuke took Shunshin back to the tower. Finally, Ginsuke showed up on the balcony. Inquiring, "Ginsuke-kun, did you find someone?" Kurenai approached him. "Relax, Nai-chan, Tsunade will help her." "Tsunade-sama?" Kurenai gasped. Knowing Hinata would survive with Tsunade's support, she gave him a hug and said, "Thank you, Ginsuke-kun, thank you." "Of course, Kurenai-chan. I know you love her like a daughter." Ginsuke nodded, then glared at Neji, who gave him a challenged smirk. "Now that we know there are 2 monsters here," Kankuro remarked, "that guy Ginsuke, he's strong enough to scare Gaara and that thing inside her. I wonder how sadistic he is compared to Gaara." Gaara's green eyes were fixed on her brother as he let out some ki. "Gaara has smelled blood, and now that thing is waking up, starting to fidget the demon that lives within her," said Kankuro, trembling. Saying, "Now, then, it's time for the next bout," Hayate coughed into his hand. Guy said, "I guess it's finally your turn. Go, Lee," while pumping his arm in the air. "No way." Lee hmphed and turned away, and the others were taken aback by his sudden shift in attitude. Still avoiding eye contact, Lee exclaimed, "I've waited this long. If it were up to me, I'd rather be in the final act." "It almost looks like Lee is sulking," Sakura thought. "Hey Choji, you're in trouble now," Shikamaru said, turning to face his friend. Asuma replied, "Only the strongest are left." "Well, you do." Choji perspired uneasily. Especially that kid from Suna. The look in her eyes worries me, she's the most dangerous type. I'll just withdraw right away, so it won't matter, declared Choji. Asuma teased, well, you'll be giving up your chance for an all-you-can-eat victory barbecue once the exam is over. Choji appeared taken aback. Hey, don't bait him with food, said Shikamaru. But don't worry if it gets bad, I'll jump in and stop the fight just like with Hinata. Okay? Asuma reassured the terrified Choji. You hear that, Choji? You can go for it, Asuma-sensei will be looking out for you, Ino said, giving Choji a pat on the back. Uncertain, Shikamaru asked, will he? The only Konoha teacher who didn't intervene to stop Hinata's mischief was him. I'm hoping Choji will be okay. Let's go think of the barbecue, Asuma said. Oh yeah? All the meat I can eat, Choji exclaimed, pumping his arms in the air. Unless you get eaten first, you poor sap, Shikamaru said, looking concerned. All those left to fight gazed up at the board. I better be next, Sasuke said, clenching his fists there, being impolite by keeping a Uchiha waiting. Why am I related to this guy? Asked Kohaku, shaking her head in frustration. Naruto-kun is someone I want to see. Gaara put one hand in the rat seal. Sensing she was next after being engulfed in sand, she vanished through her Suna Shunshin and resurfaced on the ground coldly. Gaara said, don't keep me waiting. I'm safe. Choji declared with relief. Sabaku no Gaara vs Rock Lee was written on the board. So it's Lee, but that enormous gourd of Gaara's, what's it for? Sakura asked in surprise. I'm feeling uneasy about this. Lee stated, okay, you caught me. As soon as I said I wanted to be last, I was thwarted. It's a natural law. You can throw a stone at a telephone pole time and again and never hit it, but the minute you aim to miss, you end up hitting the thing dead center. I didn't really want to be in the final act anyway. Then who's the one who got caught? Sakura was sweating. Guy responded, Lee, I've noticed something crucial that most people may have overlooked. Saluting, Lee said, yes sir, that gourd of hers is quite suspicious. I see, Lee wrote, drawing a notebook and pencil from Hammerspace. Stop taking notes. You won't have the time to consult them in the heat of battle. I see, Lee wrote, continuing. Sakura worriedly thought, I hope Lee will be all right. Lee was similar to her Naruto-kun in that he was obnoxious but kind. And Guy said, all right, Lee, go get her. Lee leapt down with joy, saying, yes, sir. Ginsuke said, raising an eyebrow. Despite his innocent appearance, Lee is pretty strong. I don't think this bushy-browed guy managed to match Ginsuke-kun before the exams. He must have cheated, or Ginsuke-kun went easy on him, Hikari said. Looking down at Lee, she nodded at her reasoning. Lee landed in front of Gaara and got to his feet, saying, I'm so glad to be facing you so soon. With her arms folded, Gaara said, HMPH. Lee assumed the Goken, his taijutsu stance. Kankuro said, I don't know what kinds of tricks this bowl-cut kid has up his sleeve, but there's no way he'll win against Gaara. No, he's stronger than you think, Ginsuke said gravely, recalling his brief altercation with Lee prior to the tests and how easily Lee was able to keep up with him. Lee, show me your real strength, Ginsuke thought. The cork of Gaara's gourd was shown to be the object that had been flying in his direction when Lee suddenly caught it. Please, don't rush things. Hikari, Sakura, and Ginsuke all observed this battle. Be careful, Lee, Guy thought. All right, said Hayate, let's start the battle in the 9th round. He may be fast, but his kick wasn't anything special. Hey, he's no match for Gaara, Tamari said with a smug grin. Konoha whirlwind. Lee hurried at Gaara and leapt with his trademark spin kick. A tiny sand wave that emerged from Gaara's gourd blocked Lee's leg. Sand? Lee exclaimed in shock as the wave of sand pushed him away from its wielder. Sand? She's manipulating sand? Sakura exclaimed in shock. So Shukaku's helping her host, eh? As expected of the weakest Biju, Ginsuke said, narrowing his eyes. Shu-chan always was a show-off with that so-called ultimate defense of hers, said Benihime, rolling her eyes. What a curious technique, said Kakashi, who had not paid attention to the Hyuga battle. Hikari was in complete disbelief. The gourd was filled with sand? Darn. Lee charged once more. Avoiding the wall of sand, he attempted to punch through it but was unsuccessful on his second try. Gaara's sand slithered protectively around her, and she was not even moving an inch. Can you do this? Gaara asked. We haven't received any yet, so we're not satisfied yet. Her eyes widened maniacally. Blood. Without even moving a muscle. Darn, panted Lee. As fast as he is, Lee is not making any progress, Sakura remarked. Hikari's attacks aren't effective. Physical attacks are useless against Gaara, Kankuro clarified. Regardless of Gaara's wishes, the sand creates a shield to keep her body safe. This is the reason that no one has ever hurt her, even now. Lee attempted another blow, but Gaara's sand blocked it once more. Sakura inquired, why is Lee only using taijutsu? Taijutsu strikes are ineffective and painful against that wall of sand. He needs to use ninjutsu and attack from a distance. It's not that Lee won't use ninjutsu, Guy clarified in reference to Lee's condition. Sakura faced him. It's that he can't, Sakura exclaimed in shock. What? Lee suffers from a unique chakra condition. He has practically no ninjutsu or genjutsu abilities. Ginsuke was well aware of the condition in which a person's chakra is so low that they can only use taijutsu and kenjutsu to survive and never learn ninjutsu or genjutsu. This condition couldn't be cured by demons like him, the Jubi, or Tsunade, the best medic Kunoichi. Shocked, Sakura exclaimed, are you kidding? Then how has he lasted this long? There aren't many ninja who can use both genjutsu and ninjutsu, so the only moves Lee has been able to develop are taijutsu. When I first met Lee, he had absolutely no sense, and no talent or ability whatsoever, Guy remarked. As Gaara attempted to grasp him with sand-made hands, Lee leapt, landing perfectly on the upright pointing index fingers and landing all the way to the ram statue. Guy turned to Sakura and said, but that's exactly why Lee can prevail. Lee got his thumbs up from him. Hey Lee. Remove them. Lee turned to face his sensei and gasped. The others gave Guy a startled look. But Guy-sensei. Lee exclaimed, you warned me not to do that unless I was protecting the lives of those I care about. Guy gave Lee another thumbs up, saying, it's okay, I'll let it. Lee took a seat and lifted his orange leg warmers to reveal weights bearing the kanji word, guts. Gaara's eyes narrowed as she observed. Sakura asked, perplexed, weights? Oh Guy, the most sickeningly sweet, sentimentally traditional kind of training. Ginsuke blinked. Lee got up, feeling more agile, and said, that's right, I can now move around freely. After that, he let go of his weights, which gradually descended to the ground. How dumb. Snorted Kankuro, HMPH, there's no way dropping a few weights will let you keep up with Gaara's sand. Tamari concurred with her brother, but she was unaware of his mistake. To everyone's surprise, the arena trembled as soon as those weights struck the floor. Holding his face, Ginsuke said, Guy, aren't you going overboard? As Guy noted, go, Lee. Show them your youthful fervor. Smirking, Lee said, yes, sir. Lee disappeared with just speed. Gaara was unaware that Lee had appeared behind her. Lee aimed a lightning-fast punch that the sand shield could hardly stop. Everybody thought differently, almost. Lee almost broke through, Sakura exclaimed in amazement. No way. It's impossible for a dobi like that to be stronger than Uchiha, Sasuke said, stunned by his eyes. Amazing. Lee's so fast. So this is some of his true power. I might have been forced to use some of my true powers if he took off his weights against me. Ginsuke echoed Sakura's astonishment. No way. His speed is near Ginsuke-kun when he nearly goes full throttle. It can't be. Hikari also shared Sasuke's denial. Guy clarified, Lee dedicated himself entirely to taijutsu because he lacked skill in either ninjutsu or genjutsu. All of his focus, all of his energy, all of this time as an expert in taijutsu. Unaware that Lee was above her, Gaara searched everywhere for him. Lee then spun around and kicked Gaara in the head with a double axe. Ginsuke and Sakura were also taken aback, as were Tamari and Kankuro, who were shocked that their younger sister was being successfully attacked for the first time. That's the boy Jin-kun fought against before the exams began, said Benihime, impressed. I can see why he could give Jin-kun trouble if Jin-kun was holding back most of his skills and power. Gaara's face was slashed. Lee is unbeatable in speed, Guy smirked, adding, I thought I gave you all fair warning that this boy is really strong. Lee skidded back, all right, let's get started. The sensei of Baki the Suna siblings was astounded by his sight. The shell-shocked Tamari thought, it's unbelievable he actually managed to wound Gaara. Still in shock, Kankuro said, no way, go Lee, Guy said, pumping his fist. Now let the flames of youth burst. Lee's eyes were burning with fire. Lee gave a nod, yes, sir. He disappeared once more. After Gaara deflected his initial blow, Lee suddenly materialized in front of her with her head turned. Lee then punched Gaara in the face, causing her to collapse to the sand. Sakura cried out, Wow. He moves so quickly. He was too fast for the sand shield to follow. There was absolutely no protection. I'm wearing her down. Lee gasped in the second protection. Gaara's sand started to shift to envelop her. Shikamaru and his group were in awe, saying, "Wow, his moves are so quick that I can't even follow them." Sasuke said, "Damn it. How is it possible? How can Adobe move faster than my eyes?" As he activated his two Tomo Sharingan but was unable to see the moves. "I can just barely see his moves," Kohaku said, revealing her fully grown Sharingan. "This is bad," Kankuro said. Gaara's face looked like it was cracking, and pieces of what looked like skin fell off. Lee exclaimed in shock, "What?" Gaara's skin turned out to be sand-based armor, and where the armor cracked, her true pale skin was visible, and her mouth, which had been neutral and closed, was now open in a psychotic smile. The ruthless smile made Lee shudder. "Of course, the sand armor as well," Ginsuke said, narrowing his eyes. What is she?" Sakura looked terrified. Her face just broke and fell off. Hikari cried in horror. In Kankuro's mind, he thought, she was wearing the sand like a shell. It's been a while since I saw that expression on her face. She's usually as composed as a statue. The picture of politeness and decorum. I had sensed that she was growing more and more unstable during the Chunin selection examination. But the other Gaara is now totally awake. If this Gaara manages to capture Lee." Baki and Tamari appeared anxious. Gaara's armor was restored by her sand, giving her her typical emotionless, icy appearance. "What's that she's using?" Hikari inquired. Kankuro declared, "It's sand armor." "Armor?" Hikari asked. "Yes. Gaara can use her willpower to control the creation of a thin layer of sand that covers and shields her entire body. It is not the same as the sand shield, where the grains naturally flow to create a barrier of protection. It's the best defense Gaara has." "Then there's nothing Lee can do," exclaimed Hikari in shock. "There are no flaws in it." However, Kankuro was aware of the sand armor's reality. That's not exactly true. The sand armor is actually riddled with weak points. It's her last resort protection. It's not automatic. The way the shield is, it requires a massive outpouring of chakra. Its defensive strength is less than that of the sand shield, and since the sand itself is lying against her skin, it increases the weight of her body, so she must expend more physical strength just to move. If Gaara has been compelled to use the armor, then her mind is purely on defense right now. She's been forced into a corner. That Lee is truly something. But the end of this is a sure thing. "That's all," Gaara said. "It's an incredible defense. She's covered in protection. So my speed is irrelevant. My only option is to just keep pounding and punishing that outer layer of sand," Lee said, staring down Gaara. "What is he doing now?" Tamari questioningly asked. "Lee," Sakura thought, "the front lotus." Lee looked to his sensei, who smiled and nodded, and Lee returned the smile. Lee started taking off his bandages. It will be nearly impossible for him to kick outward if she is wearing a thick shell of sand. So Guy reasoned. The front lotus will allow him to strike foe at high speed. A thin layer of sand won't stand up to it. Lee was essentially smoke as he ran through Gaara at such a high speed. "Come on," said Gaara impatiently. "Hurry up." "As you desire." Lee then kicked Gaara's chin, causing the Ichibi Jinchuriki to rise. "And that's not all," shouted Lee. He started kicking Gaara into the air, and her sand was unable to keep up with the speed of the taijutsu. Lee was hurt by the kicks, as he moaned and briefly closed his eyes, but Gaara needed them. "That many consecutive kicks may be too much even for Lee. Better make your next move a decisive one, kid," Guy said, closing his eyes and praying. Even an ordinary lotus move exerts a great stain on the user's body. Both Ginsuke and Kakashi noticed that Gaara's mind was spinning. Gaara's entire body, including her head, was encased in Lee's bandages, which resembled a cocoon. Lee seized Gaara and said, "Gotcha." He began to spin and headed towards the ground like a small tornado. Front lotus. Lee jumped away just before impact and slammed Gaara into the ground. Gaara lay frozen and shattered like glass as the impact rocked the arena and shattered the floor where she had crashed. "Do you think she's dead?" Hikari inquired. Kankuro gave her a look and said, "You're kidding, right?" The cheer came from Sakura. "Lee, he won." "Yes," said Guy, clenching his fist. Lee stumbled to his feet and collapsed, panting on one knee. After Gaara's skin broke off, it was shockingly discovered that her entire face was made of glass. It was only a sand clone. "When did she come out of that shell?" Guy asked in shock. "She could never have gotten past Lee." "It happened when your eyes were closed in prayer, Guy," Ginsuke clarified. Lee hesitated for a brief moment in agony, and that's when sand rose up behind Lee, revealing a now completely insane Gaara smiling maniacally at Lee, as though he were her next victim, just as she had done when she had brutally killed those AIM Nin during the forest exam. With an evil laugh, Gaara said, "Heh, heh, heh." Lee turned to see his opponent emerge from her barrier of sand. Sand gathered behind Gaara, then rushed toward Lee as she fell to one knee and put her hands in the rat seal. "It's fully awakened, Gaara's inner demon," said Konkuro, shaking. Lee found it difficult to move, but he was still experiencing the negative effects of his Lotsu technique. Lee was blasted by the huge wave of sand, which slammed him hard against the wall, shattering it. Lee moaned and slid down the wall, raising his arms to block as more sand poured in, ready to slam him again, which it did. Lee was now in actual pain and was barely able to block. Gaara prepared to splatter Lee's blood across the arena by licking her lips. "Why doesn't Lee just duck?" yelled Sakura. Guy replied, "The lotus technique he just used, it's a double-edged sword." Sakura turned to face him. "It is fundamentally a forbidden move." Ginsuke clarified, "The body is severely strained when using that level of fast-paced taijutsu at this moment. Lee is just a mass of pain and weakness, isn't that correct, Guy?" Sakura shuddered as she saw Lee now fighting to stay alive against Gaara's savage sandstorm. "At this rate, Lee's gonna," Ginsuke grimly nodded and said, "Yes, Lee will die if he doesn't find a way to recover." His words left everyone in disbelief. "That girl isn't human anymore. Unlike Naru-chan and I, she gave in to her inner demon. She's a monster, a true demon." Kushina shuddered at Gaara's unquenchable bloodthirst. The idea of her son fighting this girl unnerved her. Looking at his pupil, Guy thought, "Lee." Guy remembered how, when he had first met Lee, the boy had no ninjutsu or genjutsu skills, and his taijutsu wasn't much better back in the academy days, but Lee persisted in spite of everything. Lee stopped another wave of sand. Guy continued to recall their first day together, saying, "But Lee, you took your mediocre skills in taijutsu and made exercise and practice your obsession." And then, Lee stated that he wished to become a splendid ninja even without the use of chakra techniques aside from taijutsu. Lee avoided another sand wave that smashed the floor. Guy then recalled the words he said to Lee that day and how he had fought Neji and lost badly, but he refused to accept defeat, refusing to listen to Tenten's attempts to persuade him to give up and instead pressing on with only his courage and spirit. With a tear in his eye, Lee turned away from blocking and met his sensei's gaze. "I'm grateful, Guy-sensei." Guy gave his student a smile. To complete the task, Gaara hurled her sand in Lee's direction. "Lee, no!" cried Sakura. "Before she kills you, give up." However, to everyone's surprise, Lee easily avoided it. He got his speed back. Hikari thought, "Guy-sensei is sitting back and enjoying the show. Just knowing that alone is enough to revive me, and to make me stronger than ever," Lee said, pausing and adopting his Goken stance. Sakura was concerned. Why is Lee smiling when he's being pushed around so viciously? "He's about to start pushing back," declared Guy. "Konoha's lotus will bloom twice. It ends here for you," Gaara said. Lee concurred. "Well, one way or another, the next move will be the last." "The lotus of Konoha will bloom twice?" Kakashi asked in shock, and he glared at Guy. "Don't tell me, Guy." Ginsuke appeared unable to speak. "On the contrary," Guy affirmed, "I did." "Then that kid, who's just a genin, is able to open the 8 inner gates?" Kakashi said, narrowing his eyes. Guy replied, "Yes, that's right. It's terrible." Kakashi reflected. "He has the talent. Regardless of his talent, you taught him something extremely dangerous," chastised Kakashi. "At the top of the list of moves you should never teach is the reverse lotus. I won't go into the lecture about not letting your emotions control you, and it's none of my business what that child means to you, but you went too far. Guy, you let me down." "Reverse lotus?" Neji asked himself for the first time. Guy gave his enduring rival a real glare. "That boy has something he values so highly that he would sacrifice his life for it. You don't even know the slightest bit about him. I wanted to help him develop the ability to defend his beliefs. Because of this I was forced to." Rocks started to rise as Lee crossed his arms and focused his chakra. Ginsuke reasoned that Lee's ability to recover from exhaustion so quickly was due to his forced opening of the second gate, also known as the Gate of Healing. "So tell me, Guy," Kakashi said, "which gate has he reached thus far?" "The 5th gate. The Gate of Limit," Gade replied. Ginsuke and Kakashi were visibly shocked. That feat should be impossible to achieve through hard work alone, so the boy is a genius after all, Kakashi said, turning to face Lee. Sakura said, "What are you talking about? I'm sick of these secrets. You're always talking about these 8 gates." Guy clarified, the 8 gates act as limiters that must be released in preparation for performing the reverse lotus. Limiters. Released? Indeed, at 8 distinct locations along the Kirakuki, the chakra nodes converge. The gate of opening, the gate of healing, the gate of life, the gate of pain, the gate of limit, the gate of view, the gate of wonder, and the gate of death. Kakashi lifted his headband to reveal his Sharingan eye. The 8 gates are the names given to those 8 locations. Ginsuke assumed control. They constantly maintain limits on the amount of chakra flowing through the body, limit that the lotus technique uses chakra to forcibly override, enabling the user to draw upon strength that is dozens of times his usual level, even if the user's body is destroyed in the process. Guy clarifies, incidentally, the front lotus opens only the first gate, the gate of opening. And the reverse lotus? Sakura inquired. The user is liberated from his own mental constraints when he opens the gate of the opening. His strength is increased when the gate of healing opens, and the reverse lotus can be started when the third gate, the gate of life, opens. But the front lotus alone got him so beaten up, if he tries to perform any more moves, Sakura said, fearing and anxious. Ginsuke grimly nodded and said, this technique is really a double-edged sword. 8 gates released formation is the state in which all 8 gates have been opened, and anyone who reaches it will, albeit momentarily, be endowed with strength greater than even that of the Hokage. However, in return, that individual will unavoidably perish. Sakura let out a startled gasp. Gaara saw Lee start to radiate chakra. I will not be the only one who fails. Guy-sensei, please notice me, now, of all times, now when I finally attain my shinobi path. Lee's power grew as he considered all of his competitors, thinking, Neji, Sasuke, Ginsuke, and even, his skin turned red from the increased blood flow, his eyes were white, and veins erupted around his temples. He was surrounded by chakra. The color of his skin, Sakura observed, it's red? Hikari concluded the thought. He opened the gate of life. He's going to make his move, Kakashi thought. With his chakra exploding once more, Lee said, and, while I'm at it, the fourth gate, gate of pain. Kai. As his chakra level increased, his nose started to bleed. Then, he shot at Gaara even faster than before, and Gaara was clearly taken aback. Lee's speed was even greater than before, lifting up dust, and the whole arena shook from the impact as Gaara was kicked upward once more. To protect themselves, Asuma's team had to cover their faces. Amazing. If Lee were a demon, I would put him at high A class to low S class, Ginsuke said, observing intently. Kakashi watched the battle with his Sharingan out. No, it's bad enough that he's faster, but he has a weapon that gives him power beyond Cage. I must learn that, said Sasuke, clenching his fists. From the smoke that was produced, Gaara then flew upward. Gaara? Kankuro called in an attempt to find his younger sister. Looking up, Hikari said, look up there. When they saw the flying Jinchuriki, everyone gasped. Gaara's shield was moving so slowly that it wasn't even covering her as it usually did, and her sand armor was breaking easily. Now it looks like the sand just can't keep up, Sakura exclaimed in amazement. Before long, Lee was hurling Gaara around the arena like a volleyball, after first appearing in front of her and then behind her and punching her away. The startled Jinchuriki thought, what, my sand armor is peeling off, as she felt her armor break apart. The sand armor again, eh? At this rate, Lee slammed forward, his fist clenched, and you could actually hear the muscles tearing. If this continues, his muscles have been torn, Kakashi thought. But it's only Lee, how did he get so? Neji said in shock as he activated his Byakugan. Whoa, this is Lee's power, Ginsuke exclaimed, even I would have lost to him if he had used the 8 gates and lotus techniques against me. Gaara's armor was so broken that she resembled a broken ceramic doll. This is it, the 5th gate, the gate of limit, Lee roared. Kai, with increased strength, he launched himself at Gaara. My defenses are failing, is he even human? Gaara said, unable to defend herself. Hey Neji. I'm saving this move for when I want to use it against you, but I'll give you a sneak peek first. Lee repeatedly punched Gaara in the stomach, sending her sailing with another powerful blow. However, as Lee's bandage wrapped around Gaara, it began to slightly unravel, and Lee managed to keep Gaara motionless. This is not good, Tamari thought anxiously. The sand shield can't keep up, much of the sand armor has been torn away. The reverse lotus, a sequence of taijutsu moves executed so fast that the assailant is untouchable. Lee's secret to winning the match. The sand can't possibly catch up, Guy thought. This is the finale. Lee yanked his bandage back to him, and Gaara sprang back at him as he launched his last blow. Lee slammed her hard with a punch and kick to the gut, saying, "Reverse Lotus." The arena was shaken even more by the impact's shockwave than before. Lee moaned, his muscles tearing. He was at his breaking point, but no one saw her gourd softening and changing as she flew to the ground. "Don't tell me," said Ginsuke and Guy, "because the gourd is turning to sand. Looks like I need to teach Shukaku her place on the food chain. I don't want Haim-chan to bother with that weakling Tanuki. I'll handle her myself." Ginsuke narrowed his eyes and got ready by drawing his sword and vanishing quickly using his real speed, so that the others couldn't even see or sense his movements. Gaara landed, and because of the tremendous force and speed of her flight, she fell hard to the ground, but she was spared because her gourd turned to sand-binding coffin. Gaara said weakly, raising her hand to Lee. That took everyone by surprise. The gourd was made of sand. She used it to protect herself, Guy said, shaking. Sand tendrils wrapped around his arm and leg, covering them as Lee, who had also landed hard, attempted to stand and move but was too weak from his final technique. "That move, it's..." Shino recognized the move. Gaara said, "Sand waterfall," as she slowly closed her fist. Just before they could collapse and ruin Lee's career, however, something cut away the sand tendrils and destroyed them. Ginsuke swiftly directed all of his ki at Gaara, and a picture of his true form appeared above him. Drooling and snarling, his enormous powers were unleashed, and the eerie rip-like pattern that now covered his body left everyone paralyzed with fear. "Amazing, he's even stronger than the Kyuubi," said a shaking Sarutobi. The Daiokai growled as Ginsuke's sword came within an inch of severing Gaara's head. "That's enough. Girl, I promise that if you don't control yourself, I'll put an end to your miserable life and the useless life of that Tanuki reject inside of you that you call mother. You don't even understand the true meaning of the word demon, yet you believe you are one." For the first time in years, Gaara felt genuine fear and immediately complied with the command to return her sand. "For interference, Sabaku no Gaara is the winner," declared Hayate. Then Gaara said, "Forget it," and got up to go. The others on the balcony, however, were utterly stunned when Ginsuke said, "No way. I can't believe it," Guy exclaimed. Gaara turned and saw the same startling scene. Rock Lee was standing up despite having used the Forbidden Eight Gates and Lotus techniques. He was trembling in his fighting pose, and he was subliminally trying to prove himself. Guy leapt to his student. "Lee, don't worry, it's over, you're not fit enough to stand." "Lee, you incredible kid." Guy's eyes began to well up with tears as he noticed his pupil's condition. Lee stood on the strength of his spirit alone, his eyes gray to indicate that he was unconscious. Guy embraced his student and said, "A splendid ninja. Even though you've been knocked senseless, you're still trying to stay true to your shinobi path. Lee, you are already." Ginsuke gave a respectful nod of his head. Gaara merely observed them without feeling. "Lee." Sakura was ready to leap to the ground. "Sakura!" yelled Ginsuke. She stopped. "How are you going to assist him? Your presence will only make his suffering worse." Sakura had a dejected expression. "HMPH, sneered Tamari. He was never able to defeat Gaara." Lee was taken by the medics as his pupil was taken for treatment. Guy watched with sadness. Even at the very end, "Lee, you didn't realize the heavens would never allow you to advance further if your triumph were a Pyrrhic victory," Neji said, closing his eyes. After that, Gaara returned to her sibling's location and shunshined. "Welcome back, Gaara," said Tamari. Gaara's gaze was fixed on her sister. "Guy, it's time to start the next match, and the match can't start if we're down here," Ginsuke said. Avoiding the shine, the two of them shunshined back upstairs after Guy nodded.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.